Good evening, El Segundo. We're calling to order two meetings, a special meeting and our regularly scheduled city council meeting. And I just want to note that the council will vote on the consent item from the special meeting at the same time as the regular consent item. And we will be conducting this evening's meeting in a virtual setting. Council members and staff are participating from remote locations, and Deputy City Clerk Mona Schilling is in the chamber to accommodate public communication. Members of the public may view and listen to the meeting live this evening on Spectrum Channel 3 and 22, AT&T Uverse Channel 99, or El Segundo TV at youtube.com. Please remember, this is for the council members, to mute your mics when not speaking. And if making a motion or seconding a motion, please do so by using your last name in order for the clerk to hear and report correctly. And before we get started, I just want to say a couple things. We've gotten a lot of public communications, and I know there are quite a few members of the public in the chamber right now, filtering in or outside the council chamber. And we received many public communications related to the topic of diversity. We're very fortunate to have selected a consultant that's going to help us with diversity, equity, and inclusion. He's on the call right now, and he's going to be speaking later this evening. And before we begin, I wanted to let you know that there will be a presentation on this topic this evening, specifically with an update on the formation of a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee. And that will provide more information on the city's efforts to address.
I'm going to switch to another laptop. I'm having technical difficulties.
Okay, thanks, Mr. P. This very important issue. The city council, all five of us, take this matter very seriously. And we're committed to working collaboratively with all stakeholders toward meaningful outcomes. And I just want to say personally that in El Segundo, I've lived here a long time now, 25 or 26 years. I firmly believe that everyone gets a voice regardless of race, creed, religion, sexual orientation, or any other individual traits. And I'm confident that my council members feel the same way. And I just wanted to make that statement because we are going to be getting a lot of public communications, and we're going to have a challenge getting through the public communications in our 30-minute time period. All right, let's start with the invocation that's going to be provided by the city clerk, and then we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Council Member Nickel. Madam Clerk.
Heavenly Father, we ask for your guidance as we meet tonight to conduct business of our city government. Help us keep in mind that we are here to serve the people of El Segundo and enable us to make our decisions so that we may do what is best for all of the citizens we represent. Amen.
And thank you, Councilman Nickel.
Please stand, and if you don't have a flag present with you, face the flag at City Hall and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Nickel. All right, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilmember Giroux?
Presence.
Councilmember Nickel?
Here.
Councilmember Perstuck?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Pimentel?
Present.
And Mayor Boyles?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Now is the time and place for public communications. I'd like to clarify something as we get into the public communications. Per the Government Code 54954.3 and the Brown Act, every agenda for regular meetings shall provide an opportunity for members of the public to directly address the legislative body on any item of interest to the public that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council. The city is not allowed to discriminate based on residency or beliefs. So that's something that's come up recently from members of the public. I just want to reiterate that. The city is not allowed to discriminate based on residency or beliefs. So we do hear from anyone on that matter. All right, and let's see. Madam Deputy City Clerk Schilling, is there anyone in chamber wishing to speak? I know the answer to that already. Maybe you could tell us how many. Yeah, and Ms. Schilling, do you have a sense of how many people are there right now that have filled out the cards? Can't hear you, Mona.
20?
20? Thanks, Mona. Okay, roughly 20. So what we would like to do is allow everyone that's there the opportunity to speak for 90 seconds. So please keep to 90 seconds. And then we will, once we've heard from everyone that's there in the chamber, then we're going to move to the public communications that have been sent in via email to the city clerk. So if you could please state your name and if you'd like your address. Thank you.
So my name is John Pickhaver. Last time I stood before you, I called on you to publicly acknowledge that racial issues still exist in El Segundo. I asked you to say that you believe our Black neighbors, and I wanted to see an active show of support from you all. No proclamation of the sort ever came. Then things got worse. There was an increase in activity from the well-known hate group in our town, combined with the city's warm reception to its leader after he sent a homophobic diatribe to all of your inboxes, in which he said, "Gay people do not deserve to live." I joined El Segundo for Black Lives because I believed in its mission to create a more welcoming community for Black people. I joined because it was the right thing to do. But truthfully, I also joined because I'm gay, and I know a thing or two about what it's like to be discriminated against. So I joined this movement because if the situation were reversed, I'd want a community of support too. And I am so proud that this group has my back today, especially when my city leaders sat on their hands and did nothing for a week. This shameful incident of placation and inaction towards a third-rate provocateur from a New England-based hate group is a prime example of why the process to establish a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee must be accelerated. The need for such a committee has never been greater. A phrase I hear a lot regarding this process is that it's not a marathon, its process is not a sprint, it's a marathon. In other words, we don't want to rush it. We got to get this right. Well, let me say this. If you try really hard and you truly care, you can run a marathon at a really fast pace and finish rather quickly. It's how I came in 10th place at the Los Angeles Marathon a few years ago, #1 American. On race day, I was prepared and eager to compete. That's who you need to populate this committee, with people who on day one are determined and ready to go. I promise you, if you do that, the committee will not sit on its hands and they will not delay action to protect minority groups. They will move with alacrity like a marathoner in the best shape of his or her life, and we will become a much better city because of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm John Ratcliffe. My wife and I are retired. We've lived in El Segundo for nearly 40 years. We do not support the radical Marxist socialist agenda of the Black Lives Matter movement, and we believe in safety and security for our citizens and support our police department. And we raised our 23-year-old son here and believe in traditional family values. We believe our views reflect the majority of El Segundo citizens, and I suggest that before embarking on any radical changes, that you survey the residents and you are obligated to represent. Many more residents would stand here today in opposition to BLM movement were it not for COVID. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lynette Vanderveer. My family moved to South Bay in 1952. This is my community. Everything that exists deserves to perish. That's a quote by Karl Marx. Black Lives Matter and this group out here from El Segundo, they are a Marxist organization. So we can all agree that every color of the rainbow matters. We have black, brown, yellow, red, white, blue, all lives matter. We all get it. But BLM and this group are Marxist organizations, and their whole purpose, and you can look this up on their website, do your research. You don't use Google because we know that's biased, but do your research. You can find this in reliable places. That what they want to do is they want to dismantle America. They want to defund and abolish the police. They want to abolish the family unit. Just recently in Portland, a man was dragged out of his truck and beat the crap out of. But the story behind that is that he was driving by the mostly peaceful protesters in Portland, and he saw that a woman who happened to be a trans woman was being robbed by these peaceful protesters. They took her skateboard, they took her purse, they took her phone, and they were trying to get her money. This man happened to drive by. He saw what was going on. He got out of his truck and he helped her, and then he just walked away from it. So what did these peaceful protesters do? These Black Lives Matter protesters? What did they do? They caught that guy and they dragged him out of his truck and they beat the crap out of him. These are the kind of people that we're dealing with. These people don't care about Black lives. They are monsters in sheep's clothing.
I think we might be out of time. I think we might, we're out of time. Thank you. 90 seconds per person. Thank you for your comments.
Hello, thanks for having me. It's really a sad situation that we have to even be here, but especially in this beautiful city of El Segundo. One of the core principles of Marxism is—
Could you state your name, please? Could you please state your name?
My name is Sandy. I live in the South Bay. I used to live here in El Segundo for many years. One of the core principles of Marxism is nihilism, the belief that destruction of existing political or social institutions is necessary for future improvement. That means destruction of our Western values, our Judeo-Christian values, our liberties afforded to us in our U.S. Bill of Rights and Constitution. They want to change that. They want to get rid of that. Importance of strong and intact families is the ideal. They want to bring that down. The three founding members of BLM are self-avowed Marxists. If Black Lives Matter, I say all Black Lives matter. More Black lives are sacrificed on the altar of Planned Parenthood than are born. Defund Planned Parenthood and kick them out of our public schools, for goodness sakes. And don't allow them a foothold. And also, I tell you, instead, fund El Segundo PD. Toss all demands of BLM out of the city and save El Segundo and stop the BLM chaos. Please, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tanya Taylor. I'm a parent and a resident of El Segundo. I'm here today because I received a very disgusting flyer on my doorstep, which I found to be totally unacceptable. I think it's very obvious, if you apply some common sense, that there is no Black Lives Matter chapter here in El Segundo. There's a group called El Segundo for Black Lives, which has its own principles and its own mission statement based on El Segundo. History has always shown that those who oppose advancement for race, for equality, and for justice have a million excuses. Marxism. What has that got to do with anything here today? Absolutely nothing, because El Segundo for Black Lives has never and will never have a Marxist policy. I don't want to see any of the residents here, and especially the LGBTQ plus residents, be terrorized. Receiving that flyer on my doorstep, the terror that must send through a person who is from that community, the terror it must send through Black people who are here saying that we too want to be treated equally. It's beyond disgusting. And if we leave it unchecked, it continues to grow and it continues to fester in our city. We have all seen it. Look at history. Whenever hatred is not, sorry, oh, thank you. Whenever hatred is not denounced, it grows and it grows until we end up with violence and we end up with people getting hurt, seriously hurt. I really implore you to please protect our community and especially our LGBTQ plus community who did not deserve to be treated like this. Thank you.
Mark Reener? Yep, you know me. I do. In fact, most of the people in El Segundo know me. I've been an El Segundo resident since the late 1970s. I even have my Parks and Rec card from 1979 still with me, if anybody wants to see it. I've seen El Segundo. I moved to El Segundo for a specific reason, not Westchester, not Inglewood. I moved here because I like the city. It's a small town. I like the way it was run. It has their own police department, a fire department. It's like a small town. Now we have an organization called, they call themselves Black Lives Matter of El Segundo. Well, that's a fallacy because they don't exist as Black Lives Matter of El Segundo. In fact, Black Lives Matter doesn't exist at all. They're not even a 401, a 501c. You can look that up because I've looked it up and I've looked at the IRS documents. They are not even listed. If you really want to know what Black Lives Matter is, they're called Black Lives Matter Global Network. We send millions of dollars to other small countries that are trying to overthrow their little governments. We all know how Soros deals with other governments. I've been reading about this joke in here, and I see all the little Black Lives Matters who showed up. The trouble is 95% of them are white. So they can care what they want to care. They can do what they want to do. There are Black families living in this town. I know there are Black families living in this town, but there is no such thing as the Black community of El Segundo. Driven Latino community. I also look for the Asian community. I look for the evil Ku Klux Klan community. I couldn't find them. The only thing I could find in this town were El Segundo residents. So,
Mr. Reiner, thank you. Hey, Tracy, was I frozen? I still have a bad internet connection. Can somebody tell Charles that I'm still having issues in this room? Maybe Scott Mitnick, could you give him a heads up that despite using a different.
Frozen. I think the communications was frozen.
Mr. Mayor, I'll get on that too.
Thank you, sir. Hi, sorry about that.
No worries. Hi, my name is Christy, and as a longtime resident of El Segundo, I am shocked, deeply concerned, and disheartened by messages put forward by the white supremacist hate group that so brazenly distributed flyers throughout our beloved community. Those flyers were not beloved and did not reflect the community part of. That El Segundo is a place that does not nurture hate, oppression, and marginalization, but rather educates folks on empirically backed truths and the toxic effects of perpetuating these subjective, antiquated, and quite frankly, ignorant beliefs. As a person who is well-versed on the matter, the claim that El Segundo for Black Lives and LGBTQ folks plus promote harmful sexual behaviors has no empirical evidence to support it whatsoever. That is a blatantly false, fear-mongering claim. The only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good folks to do nothing. Please, I implore you, take a stand and support our collective liberation, the future health, evolution.
Tracy, I did not get that last person's name. Could you?
Christy. She didn't give a last name. Christy was her first name. I think the clerk's probably going to get it.
We can send you all the names tomorrow because I'm not getting them either. So we take them down on the cards and we can, sorry you guys, and we can send them to you. Mona takes a PDF of them.
Okay.
Well, and I am here because I have to implore you to please not give in to this fear-mongering from people who are just against the basic recognition of people's rights. This isn't about politics as much as it is about fear and hate. It's about not loving our neighbors, and it's very unchristian, and it's very disheartening, and it's terrible to be a person experiencing this. And I can't even imagine, because I'm white and I'm experiencing it, I can't imagine what it's like for people of color. And I just wanted to let you know that not all residents in El Segundo, because I'm a longtime resident and I vote every time, every time. White people in El Segundo are here to submit to this kind of racism. We're not here to submit. We're here to grow. We're here to learn. We're here to love our brothers and sisters in this world, no matter what they are. In the true Christian spirit of Jesus, we do not afford this kind of hate a place in our hearts. And I am imploring you to not allow it to continue with racist and homophobic slurs and Thank you.
Thank you.
Was there a backdrop on that sign? Was there imagery for that, or was that just a matting? Okay, got it. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Salutations. I'm Elias Garcia here again. This time I'm not bringing you numbers though, because this time I'm here to talk about how last Diversity and Equity Commission. So I'm just going to pray real quick that what you didn't mean is people who are opposed to diversity and equity being on the Diversity and Equity Commission, because that wouldn't really make a lot of sense and would probably just keep it and help make this town a better place, and in return, we're not going to try to vote you out quite so quickly, right? So I think we can continue this friendly relationship, just make sure that this Diversity Equity Commission is going to be what we all want it to be, which is something that can push El Segundo to the future and make this town a better place for all of us. I love this city, and I want to see it be the best place it can be. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Boyles, City Council, my name's Keith Puckett. We've all been witness to the hate group infiltrating El Segundo for the purposes of terrorizing residents, business owners, and the children of this town. We have all heard their hateful rhetoric and bigotry. In fact, many of us have been the victim or witness to their deliberate attempts to discriminate against, divide, and target members of our community, even going as far as putting videos of minors on their website getting berated by members of their group. Yet, we come here again today to ask our city council members, our police department, and our city to denounce hatred and the hate group it rides in on. Thus far, the city's engagement with and its response to this hate group has been prompt assistance and pleasantries. The city's inability to denounce the hate group from the outset has made El Segundo an inviting location for their persistent and growing attacks on people from marginalized communities, and most recently, residents, students, and professionals who stand before you today love El Segundo, and we want everyone who lives here and visits to be able to say the same. We are not only asking that you denounce the hate group and their leader, we are asking that you take a stance that will consistently demonstrate that El Segundo is a diverse and inclusive city. Put actions behind your words, prove that the words spoken today were not merely prepared to quell the current outrage that our community is expressing. We need to ensure that El Segundo truly identifies and proves to be a safe place for every single person who lives, works, studies, or visits, regardless of age, race, religion, gender, perceived gender, or sexual orientation. I did a Google search on City Manager condemns hate groups.
Mr. Puckett, can you wrap it up? We gotta wrap it up, 90 seconds each. Can you wrap it up with one sentence, or are you good?
You're good. Just take a look at Portland, Maine Mayor Kathleen Schneider. She had a city proclamation. The city of North Liberty, Iowa, and the city statement that they did condemning racists.
Okay, I'll look.
The day they put flyers. Have a great day. Thank you for your time.
Hi, I'm Kelly Stewart. I'm a longtime resident. My family has been here since the 40s, and I have a grandson going to Richmond Street School. The LGBTQ community needs to know that since the first visit of this hate group to our city. This hate group has escalated its activities. In the last week, vile communication has been directed towards our city council and residents. The goal of this hate group is to derail the city's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Commission and subvert our city's desire to make El Segundo an equitable and inclusive city. Today, we specifically want to address the fact that this hate group is seeking to terrorize and infringe upon the human rights of marginalized people with a special aim at our LGBTQ+ family. These are my neighbors. These are your neighbors. These are our friends. They are parents, business owners, residents, students, taxpayers, and voters. They are the people we live among and the people we rub shoulders with every single day. And it is our duty to ensure that they are treated equally, fairly, and with love and respect. California law affords protection to LGBTQ people, protection from discrimination, and protection from hate crimes. Here in El Segundo, we have this hate group which has come seeking to incite violence against our own residents. And I want to say, they have been posting personal information of people, posting, like asking people to share it. It's kind of scary. We need to protect our LGBTQ neighbors. We cannot permit harm to come to them on our watch. Okay, we can't look away. Let's set an example here in El Segundo of what unity in adversity looks like. Let's do everything in our power to advocate and protect our LGBTQ community.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart.
My name is Susan Bowling. I'm a resident of El Segundo. I have a brief prepared statement and then some personal comments. Inaction, lack of action is complicity. If you choose to do nothing but offer words, your lack of actions will and African-American community. This message will be an invitation not only to the hate group already instigating excuse me, and infiltrating El Segundo, but also other hate mongers and seeking a platform for their anger. Silence is violence, and action is complicity. When you took this office, you took an oath to serve this community, all members of this community, to the best of your ability. I'm asking you bluntly, but with all due respect, to please do your jobs, and for all of the community of El Segundo, of all community members. We are asking you to protect one of our more vulnerable communities, and we are asking you to do that now. We need not wait months for the establishment of a DEI commission, although I applaud you for approving that. Those duties and those members are yet unclear. We need action and not words, and we need it today. We eagerly wait to see if our calls to action will fall on deaf ears, or if those who had the tenacity to run for this office, if you will take that same amount of zeal when it comes to exercising your power to protect the members of the community that are under attack. I just want to say personally, I am 60 years old, and this is not my first time speaking on this subject. Year after year, my rights have been up for vote, and that's exhausting. I also want to mention that the people out front have been harassing. They're calling the members of our committee and individual community members employers and sending messages.
Sorry, I gotta be consistent. Well over your time. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Rebecca Yesman. I'm an El Segundo resident, parent of 2 children in our public school system. Who stood on which side? However, there never seems to be a place reserved in the books for those who just sat on the fence. This is a picture of Elizabeth Eckford, one of the students of the Little Rock Nine who was spat on, hit, called names, and taunted for the audacity of being one of the first African-American students to go to an all-white school. The young woman behind her with her mouth wide open is Hazel Bryan Massery, who can be seen shouting hatefully at young Miss Eckford. Now, Hazel lived to regret her hateful conduct and even sought to make amends for her behavior. However, it's this iconic photo that's forever etched into history for all to know what stance she and her community took during desegregation. So what stance does El Segundo want to take? What side of this picture do we want to be on? How do we want to be seen throughout history? Do we want to be the people with their mouths wide open, yelling in hate? Or do we want to be the people who are taking strides towards inclusion and diversity? I expect our city council to make the right decision, to stand up for justice and not sit idly by. El Segundo needs leaders, people who will lead with action and do so especially during difficult times. And I want to leave you with a final quote from Elie Wiesel. We must take sides. Neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented. He also said that the opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. We need to stand up and be on the right side of history. Thank you.
Thank you.
think I'm safe to take my mask off. I'll leave it on. Amanda Touchton here again tonight. Thank you. I've spoken to you all before. I come today, however, simply to speak to you as your neighbor. Some of you, your daughter goes to school with my daughter and is in the same class. I don't know if you remember me, but we've sat next to each other in parent-teacher events. We are not a crazy radical group. We are your parents. I've been at the games with you. We know each other. We're not asking for anything here except that all the citizens of El Segundo be treated fairly. We're not asking for anything here that isn't already the law of this land and has been the law of this land for years. We're asking you to denounce racism. We're asking you to stand with those who have always stood for justice and equality. It's a simple ask. It's not a complicated ask. It's not an ask that comes with a clothing. We're your neighbors, we're fellow parents, we're the parents of your children's friends, and we are simply here today to request the most basic, which is equality, which is something that every citizen of this nation, and certainly
Hello, my name is Michael. Is here to speak, and originally I wanted to just talk about the whole issue with defending the police and BLM. However, I can't help but just hear the comments previous to me speaking, and I just wanted to address them. I believe we live in the greatest nation in the land, the United States of America. We're the most tolerant nation there is. Look at the makeup of this nation. We're all races, all races. There is no hate. I mean, hate is a problem, yes, but that's an individual problem. It's not anything that's being perpetrated by you or the city or the community. That's a problem to do with a lack of family structure in the home, and also the lack of valuing of the church. You know, we've eliminated the church from schools, and that's also led to a decline in morals. So I believe the issue lies with that. I do want to address the funding of the police. I don't believe the police should be defunded. The police, they protect the community. There's good cops and bad cops, but overwhelmingly, it's good cops who just want to serve the community, protect citizens, you know, answer phone calls, and who need the police to help them, assist them. And if we defend the police, what that's going to hurt is it's going to hurt the poor communities, the minority communities will be disadvantaged because they won't have anybody to answer those calls. The rich and the wealthy are going to have their private security.
Mr. Lynn, can you wrap it up? You're out of time, please. Wrap it up.
Don't defund the police, and I want you to understand that there is no the hate group that they're speaking of. It just simply does not exist, and it's a victimhood mentality.
Thank you.
Thank
we got to cut it. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ben Watkins. I am an El Segundo resident. I'm a parent, and I'm a business owner. I am a longtime stakeholder in the city of El Segundo. I am here to represent and support El Segundo for Black Lives. We are an organization committed to equality, opportunity, and justice for all. We are anti-discrimination, anti-racism, anti-hate. I would urge anyone and everyone to please disregard any mistruths being spewed, and all the misdirections and all the fear mongering that is being out there to try to discredit El Segundo for Black lives. Our commitment is to a fair and better El Segundo. Now I'm standing here by myself, but I'm not alone. I represent my family. My wife and I raised our 4 sons in this community. We plan to be here for a long time. And I must tell you, we are supported by many, many more people. I cannot in 90 seconds list the names of all the friends, all the neighbors, and all the acquaintances in El Segundo who have reached out to make sure that I know that they want El Segundo to change for the better. And many of them are lending a hand to help make that change happen. And I want to publicly thank all of our friends and neighbors who have pledged their ongoing support. Unfortunately, I have not yet heard from our city council. The very leaders of this community who can set the tone for that change have been publicly silent. It's time for you to tell everybody who needs to hear it that this city celebrates difference and embraces diversity.
Mr. Watkins, can you round it out, please? Thank you.
Yes. If you claim to represent the people of El Segundo, then you need to stand up right now and promise the youth of this city that they are going to grow, protects people from all walks of life. Say that out loud. Then join us in doing the work to make sure that happens. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
John Pitzer, been a resident years. I've raised two girls and 7 grandchildren here. And I'm here to say that I expect that the city council is looking out for the welfare of the community. For any political organization should be debunked. And that's all I can say about that.
My name is Arthur Schopper. I'm the organization director for Mass Resistance. We're an international pro-family group, and we were founded by an Orthodox Jew. We've become so effective that and my colleagues, including our Orthodox Jewish community, Muslims, Christians, and they've even tried to shut down charter schools that serve Black students. So, to clear that out, El Segundo, what a beautiful city. But there's one problem. There's some very ugly elements in it. This Black Lives Matter, truly a hate group, is pushing to defund the police, even though Black Americans, by and large, want to see a larger police presence in their community. They call themselves El Segundo for Black Lives, but let's cut the crap. They're just another chapter of Black Lives Matter, a group that is militant, a domestic terrorist group that attacks property, that threatens and intimidates residents of different communities. Residents in this community reached out to Mass Resistance and asked us to speak up on their behalf. Many of the residents in this community have told me that they have been harassed, doxxed, their businesses attacked. Employers have been contacted to try to get them fired. And this is from this so-called tolerant and inclusive El Segundo for Black Lives group. You should not be listening to them, but listening to the members of this community. You should be You should be following the principles that Martin Luther King Jr. laid out, which is to judge people by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. One of them called the police to try to prevent me from exercising my First Amendment rights on Saturday.
Mr. Schopper, could you, your time's up. Wrap it up, please.
Officer Black did a great job protecting my rights, protect the rights of El Segundo citizens, and reject.
I'm here today to speak up because I think that all lives matter. As an LGBTQ member of this community with 4 African American children, I want to raise them here and have them feel like they are equal to everyone else in the community. I'm not here to support any rhetoric, and I think that our city council really needs to stand up for the hate emails and messages that you've been getting from the man that just spoke before me and his hate group. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
I'll keep this simple. I know there's been discussion about the police department and defunding it. The police already have enough going on with changes with how they have to handle policy, and what used to take 1 officer now takes a half dozen. Cutting the funding of the police department at this time would just be horrendous. Also, just from a neighborhood perspective, a lot of people have brought up that they're afraid to come and speak. everyone has asked if there's any significant change, if it could be brought to a vote. Something where the taxpayers and residents of El Segundo actually get to vote on any major change that's going to take place in the city. If that's something that can be done, that would be terrific.
Thank you. Did we get his name? Do you know, Madam Clerk? Yeah. Okay, Mona's got it. She said, okay.
Mona will have them all for you.
Okay,
I'm
great.
actually asking her to PDF and send them to you.
Can we just make sure that they're in the order that they spoke?
Yeah, I believe Mona numbers them.
Awesome. Can't hear.
My name is Richard McMonagall. I'm a longtime resident of El Segundo. I'm here to absolutely support the police department. Please do not entertain these ideas of defunding the police department. If you have any doubts about what BLM's like, look around the country. Everywhere this group goes, cities are there. The protection of the people that live in those areas, everywhere that they go. And they're the people that they say they're supposed to be helping. We need to stop this. We need to stand up. We've seen this before. It's been around the world. It's been in Cuba. It's been in Venezuela, Russia, China. We need to stop this. Let's just back off, support the police, stop listening to BLM. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, City Council and Mayor. My name is Everardo. I am a member of, I live in the community of City of Hermosa Beach. I want to express my opposition to the Black Lives Matter movement. I believe it's an organization that is going to be destructing our communities, the whole nation. I believe that we need to support and fund our police. Otherwise, it's going to infest our communities with crime and high activities that are not conducive to good education as well as businesses. So I fully support funding the police. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, council members. My name is Megan Melanson. I am a resident and a mother of El Segundo. I'm an attorney who fights for justice and equality every day. I want the same in my city. At the last meeting, this council implied that the new committee will be made up of a diversity of opinions. In other words, the diversity, equity, and inclusion committee would not include people who are committed to diversion, equity, and inclusion. It is a suggestion so incredibly ludicrous that it would be laughable if it weren't such a small town, easily susceptible to performative actions that rarely lead to any meaningful and lasting change. It is our hope that the council is able to understand that the members selected should only be those who possess a demonstrated devotion to the ideals literally in the committee's name. I heard someone earlier mention that because there's no Black people here today, that somehow there is no Black community of El Segundo. As a mother of a biracial daughter, I take issue with that. I take issue and I'm concerned that my daughter will be spat on like the photo you saw earlier. She should be able to get her education in a safe way, not be discriminated against and hated simply because of something she never asked to be. She didn't ask to be biracial. That was a choice that I made, and I made it proudly, and I would do it again. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I've been here in the past over the Art Museum and the Drag Queen Story Hour. Hello, nice to see you all. I'm just going to put my name to the face because I wrote a letter to each of you through a collective email. So when you read it, you'll know that it was written by me. I have a degree in organizational leadership from Chapman, and one of the courses we were compelled to take was diversity and inclusion. I'm just wondering if you all really have done due diligence in researching this subject matter to understand what it really is. I'm not going to go on about that, but thank you very much for your time, and please read the email that I sent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your help. Hi, my name is Charles Edward Ship, and just a little bit about me. If you're familiar with the Y, it's either Yale or BYU. And I graduated at BYU in physics, came down here with Lynette. We have 5 children who have served foreign missions and 19 grandchildren. That's an important movement because the nation is watching. Since I left Northrop, well, actually before that, I've been sending notes to broadcasters across America. Our list now includes 2,500 people. So I did invite KTLA to watch this, and also I was in the dorms with Chuck Henry. So enough about me. Want you to give keen attention to Arthur Schlapper. And he is an international leader, and they go back years. You can read about him if you do a simple Google search. I want to give you the words of Mike Huckabee that I heard recently. He said there's 2 kinds of Marxist radicals. Those that are Marxist radicals, they lie and they try to cover it up. And those who are Marxist radicals and who brag about it. Now, what we need is good education in the schools for good family American values, which I know you will do. And secondly, we need safety in the schools. There are retired.
Sir, could you wrap it up? We're out of time. 90 seconds per person. Please. Thank you. Madam Clerk, how many more do we have, or is that it? I have a feeling you're telling us that's it, but we can't hear you.
She sent me a text. That was it.
Okay, thank you. All right, and Madam Clerk, Tracy, I know we have comments and email. Is there a way to summarize the sentiment of those and give us a count?
Okay, so I did the best I could while everyone else was speaking. I do have one comment for our the Safe Clean Water Program, item number, I believe, B10. And I also have something from ESMOA. And then I have 47 that all pretty much say the same. And I kind of summarized it. And then I have 4 in the opposite direction. So I'll do whatever you would like me to do.
I think we're good. I think, is there anything by reading through those emails? I know you got quite a few today, pretty late in the day.
I can just tell you of the 47, that a majority of them were to denounce the mass resistance, support LGBTQ+ and minorities. Most 90% of them would like to issue a proclamation affirming. They are in favor of the DEI committee, but they would like to make sure that those appointed are committed to the principles of the DEI committee. And they almost all ended with silence speaks volume, silence is complicity. So that is 47. Of the other 4, they are not in favor of the El Segundo for Black Lives. They oppose the propaganda. They support the police department. They do not support dissident groups with demands, and they do not support defunding the police. And then if you like, I can.
A little bit of a blip in the video. I think what I'd like to suggest is that I personally have what I need in terms of the gist of the sentiment. I think is there a way for you, Trace, we've never really done this before that I can recall, but is there a way for your office to somehow collate all the comments in one PDF and send them? Or
Yeah, Mona posted them to our website earlier today.
Okay.
She's probably stopped at about 35 or 40, so we would have to post the rest tomorrow. But for now, I would say 75% of them are up there, and we'll go ahead and put the rest.
Oh, great. So we'll have access to the
You'll
website.
all be able to see what they have written.
Great. Council, you okay with that moving forward? Yes? Any opposed? No. Okay, good. Thank you. City Manager, any follow-up comments? There seems to be some confusion on the DEI committee composition, Scott.
Our boss is going to give you an update in a few minutes, and then she can answer those questions.
Okay. Thank you. All right, anything else, Scott, on the public comments? Are we ready to move on?
Ready to move on, Mr. Mayor.
And speaking so passionately about their thoughts and ideas. We heard you loud and clear. All right, I'm still getting an issue with my internet, Scott. I'm sorry about that.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, we all are. It has to do with the Wi-Fi in the building. I don't have any excuses for you other than we know it's an issue. So what we need to do tonight is just do our best to get
Power through it. Okay.
Power through it.
Clear.
Thank you.
Councilmember Giroux, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to respond to some of the stuff that was in public comment. Regarding the city manager response, that seems to be kind of a common thing that people are kind of bringing up. I saw it on social media as well. Mr. Mitnick's job is to be a professional, to be neutral, and to be courteous. Even if his personal views do not match up with what is being said, his job is to act in the best interests of the city and its residents, and he has done exactly that. It's not the city manager's job to set the tone. That responsibility lies with the 5 of us on this dais who were elected by all. You know, there was a lot of talk about we've been silent. One of the problems is obviously we have not had a council meeting. We've only had 2 in the past, 2.5 months. So that creates a lot of, issues because they don't have a chance to speak. Additionally, me personally, I don't make broad comments on social media before I make them publicly. And the reason why is I don't want my words to be misconstrued. So I'll take this opportunity to state how I feel about things. I'd like to state unequivocally that I do not support any group or individual, either outside based on race, religion, age, gender, or sexual orientation. There's no room for this behavior in our society as a whole, never mind in our small community. And this goes for all groups. It's time for us to find common ground and become part of the solution rather than compounding the problems and creating more division. Our role as city council members is to make decisions based on what we feel is best for the community as a whole. I listen to all sides. I read every single letter that comes in, regardless of which group ended. Everyone has a right to be heard, and I respect that right, even if I disagree with what is being said. I do it because it helps me become more educated on subjects and topics that are important to the community. I do want to bring up one issue in particular that seems to be the most contentious one. I hear it all the time, and that is the issue of defunding or demantling the police. While it is well known that this is a big push on the national platform of Black Lives Matter, to my knowledge and my recollection, the El Segundo for Black Lives group in town has never once made a demand of this council to either defund or dismantle the police. Never one time. And that is the truth. I have read through seemingly hundreds of emails from the El Segundo for Black Lives group, and never once have I seen this requested. I make this point not to defend one side or the other necessarily, but to illustrate that maybe there is more common ground than we think. Finally, on the topic of our DEI commission, we're going to be having a presentation on that in a little while. As a council, we've proven we are committed, we are excited, we are working diligently to do it right, and we look forward to getting. The idea to form this commission came from council. It did not come from any group or individual, and it predated any demands that were made. The suggested narrative that we were somehow forced into forming this commission is wrong. I believe that this DEI commission is the first step in the right direction for our community, and I'm proud to be part of the process. Thank you.
Thanks, Lance. All right, special presentations. A, appreciation of Interim Public Works Director Mark Watkins and welcoming incoming Public Works Director Elias Sassoon. Mr. Mitnick.
I'm right here, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Moments like these, we regret that we're not in the chamber, because if we were in the chamber, I would be at the podium with both of these gentlemen by my side. So I'm gonna have to do my best. They're in their respective offices down the hallway. So first, we want to just say thank you to Mark Watkins, who served as the Interim Public Works Director for the past 4 months. Mark, there, okay, you can see them on the screen. And for the record, gentlemen, you better be 6 feet apart.
Sure, look,
We
arms
are.
out, arms out. There we go.
Okay. Say thank you for your service, stepping up, filling the gap when Ken Berkman left to go to the city of Burbank. It was a tremendous opportunity for him. So Mark worked really hard. I think council, for all of you and members of the executive team and our city employees, members of the public that interacted with Mark, he'll be remembered as that one guy who did a great job that they never really saw because they only dealt with him sort of virtually. So you did a terrific job. Thank you for helping us. And for that, Mark, I'll come down later. We have a nice, well, I can't see it. We have a nice goodie bag for you with some mementos from the city to say thank you, and a card from the executive team. And then council, you've already had the chance to meet Elias. Elias Sassoon, if you could work your way into the screen there. Thank you. So ladies and gentlemen, to publicly introduce Elias Sassoon as our new Public Works Director. We're really fortunate. He has over 3 decades of experience working for actually larger cities and a smaller city. He began his career in Texas. He worked in the cities of Dallas and Cedar Hill. I think there was another one along the way, but in the public works field, engineering background, and just really, really fortunate to have somebody with his depth of background. And he's been in California for a few years, was working in Rancho Palos Verdes, right?
Correct.
And was there for about 3 years. He lives up this way, a little north of here, and was when the opportunity came to be closer to his home, he jumped on it, and he's thrilled to be part of the organization as we are. So, Mr. Mayor, if it's okay, if he can say a couple words, and then we'll be done with this. And then Elias, I have a really cool bag for you too, which I will walk over and share with you. It's a little gift bag from the department head group.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, Mr. Sassoon, please. And Mayor Cruikshank of RPV says we're getting a good find. So he's bummed and we're happy. Welcome.
Thank you. Honor and a pleasure to be here serving at that capacity. And I commit to you that I'll do my best to serve the city and the citizens of this beautiful city to the best of my ability.
Great. Welcome. Thank you so much. I look forward to meeting you. I know we all do.
Thank you so much.
Notice that short presentation.
Big bonus points right away for cutting that short. Way to go.
There you go.
All right, next up, there's a proclamation I'll read, and it's for August as Black-Owned Business Month. Whereas El Segundo recognizes the hardships that have been created by our current times for many individuals, families, for-profit businesses alike. And whereas the city has and continues to encourage community members to shop locally in support of our El Segundo-based establishments to help maintain a robust economy and large and small. And whereas the staff and officials of the city of El Segundo take seriously our commitment to equity and fairness for all people, organizations, and businesses within our community. And whereas National Black Business Month was launched in California in 2004 with intended practical goals such as celebrating, highlighting, and supporting minority-owned commerce, as well as generating awareness for the policy issues affecting African-American entrepreneurship. And whereas according to a recent survey by the U.S. Census Bureau, there are approximately 2.6 million Black-owned businesses in this country, employing nearly 1 million employees and generating annual revenues of roughly 200 billion. And whereas finding comprehensive lists of local shops, restaurants, and professional services as easy as a web search, and because of online technology, patronizing Black-owned businesses is easier than ever. Now, therefore, the mayor and members of the City Council of the City of El Segundo, California, hereby proclaim August 2020 as Black-owned Business Month in El Segundo, and encourage citizens, their families, and friends to take the opportunity to celebrate, promote, support, and shop at Black-owned businesses. Thank you. And we're virtual, so no one's going to receive this. I will say, having used Yelp recently, there's now a function on Yelp where when you do your search, you'll identify Black-owned businesses. And I've also come across several apps recently that highlight Black-owned businesses that can be found online. Thank you for that. All right, next up, we have an update from Chief Donovan on COVID-19. Chief?
Hi, good afternoon, Mayor, members of City Council. I have a presentation I'd like to share on my screen with you. I'll go through this slide deck quickly. We're going to talk, give an update on situational update on health metrics, state criteria, county criteria. We're going to explain a little bit the difference between the two, and we'll give an update to some of the local information that we're taking care of in our incident management team's response to COVID-19. So I'm hoping that you can see my screen now. Oh, great, thank you, sir. So let's jump into the health data. This is as of today. Our information comes from the CDC, from the state. I'll let you read the numbers at the state and United States level. We're drilling into and most interested in and follow closely the county metrics. Yesterday, today, there was an increase of 1,003 cases. This is a overall decrease in the number of new cases, which is a good trend. There was the LA County hospitalizations went up slightly by 11, although that still shows a overall decline in the data. And our LA County confirmed cases in ICU rooms, meaning those that are sick and need to have advanced life support intervention, went down by 10. Locally here in El Segundo, we had no new reported cases. We're steady at 110 cases since the reporting took place, cumulative, and we have 9 adjusted cases. That means that there are 9 residents that are within that 14-day incubation period. Overall, this is an important data piece that we have not shared with the council or community. This is related to what's called the R effect or the R naught. And this speaks to the how quickly and easily, not quickly, easily the in the community. And in the beginning of COVID-19, the numbers that were being reported were in the 3.5 to 3.8 R naught. And what that means is for every person that contracts COVID-19, they would potentially spread that to 3 to 3.8 people, which was a very high number. As we continue to test and get more metrics in Los Angeles County, we are now reporting a reflective R effective metric of 0.95. So for every person that is infected, they will infect less than 1 person. So what this shows is a steady decline in the community spread. One that we hope will continue to decline, and it will show that the actions that we're taking locally in the county to slow the transmission have been effective. Specifically, I want to spend a little bit of time talking about the area in the Los Angeles County metrics. And this is going to be important as we continue on to shape the conversation about reopening businesses and getting back to more community activity that's being allowed. Currently, the state has watch list criteria, and there are 4 criteria related to the virus transmission. That is the number of new cases that occur, the hospitalization rate, and hospital surge capacity for ICU beds and ventilators. And I'll dive into this data in a moment to show you where we are currently. This is an important distinction from what the county has been reporting, and that these are the metrics in which we would be allowed to, the county that is, would be allowed to request that have been restricted. And so we're going to continue to watch this closely and report on these metrics. In addition to these 4 metrics, Los Angeles County reports on death rates, contract tracing capability, and personal protective equipment. And although this is important and it's meaningful, we're more interested in the state watch criteria. And as we get into this, we're currently here's what the state's looking for. From a testing perspective, they're looking at a 7-day average of more than 150 tests conducted per 100,000 residents. From a case rate perspective, there are 2 ways that you can meet the county's mandate to get off the watch list. Less than 100 new cases per 100,000 residents on a 14-day average, or less than 25 per 100,000. That's the one area that the County of Los Angeles is not meeting that metric. Hospitalization, the state's looking to see a continual decrease in the 3-day average, and surge capacity, making sure that we have lots of hospital bed availability and ventilators. As we look at the actual data now, I apologize, this data is from yesterday. I wasn't able to cut and paste off of the website the data, but if we look at the data from yesterday, it's actually improved today. We are meeting the county's watch list criteria per day. The county set up multiple test sites, and we've continued to track in a positive trajectory with testing. This shows a screen of the 7-day testing average. What this means is that our number of positive tests has dropped from a high of 10%. And in the county now, we're at 6.1% of those being tested are coming back positive. So again, that's a positive trend for the county. As it relates to state watch list criteria number 2, elevated disease transmission based on the number of new cases. Well, we're looking for no more than 100 new cases per day. Currently, we're at 245 new cases a day, but these numbers are beginning to steadily decrease, and we anticipate with the ongoing surveillance that's being done with the wearing of face covering and social distancing, we'll continue to see new cases decrease. So we'll watch that very closely. The hospital 3 and 4 were in the positive in both of those. We've seen a steady decrease in the number of people being hospitalized. And in fact, the people that are requiring ICU bed over the last week has steadily decreased. In fact, I was on a conference call on Monday with the LA County EMS, and they were demonstrating some really good data from hospitals that were reporting the number of cases, admittance, ICU bed, and ventilators all were going down. So that's promising and favorable data. As it relates, this is a graph that shows the pretty steady decrease over the last several days and weeks of hospitalization. In addition to the state metrics, the county of deaths, we're still in the target rate for the county in terms of decreases, and they're continuing to report on contact tracing, and they're demonstrating that within 1 day of a new case, a public health COVID-19 patient to try to advise people that may be in contact to take precautions. And that's an important distinction and will equally help slow the spread of the virus. And we'll continue to watch that also because this does impact the hospitals, but it also impacts first responders. Those last 3 metrics, though, aren't as important as the first 5. I want to go back really quickly to the testing and dive into this a little bit more, just because it's such an important component of what we do. And we've had some questions about all of the test labs in California are accredited and regulated by the California Department of Public Health, and they all have what's called amendment certificate or a CELA certificate. What that means is they've met federal requirements for professionalism. They're audited once a year. They go through rigorous training of all their staff. They meet all the requirements that a lab would be required in terms of handling test material and live virus. And as it relates to the labs being paid for the service, the federal government, through the Federal CARES Act, put into the legislation what's called reasonable and customary value of service. And so all the labs that are reporting to the state of California get a $100 per lab fee for COVID-19, regardless of the location in the state of California. Compared to a strep throat a lab result, that could be anywhere from $35 to $50. And so what this indicates is that labs are strictly monitored, that there's robust follow through with these labs. And as we know that there was some testing issues at the state level, and that was with a database, not with the labs themselves. And so the lab reports that are being developed through the county and given to the state are indeed valid. And we should take some comfort in knowing that they're well monitored. As it relates to, I'm going to go forward in my deck slide presentation quickly here. As it relates to what we're doing locally, we have seen positive trend in state health metrics. Los Angeles County is working hard to put this information out by 3 o'clock every day. If you look at those four metrics that the state provided, those are going to be really important. One that would allow the county to apply a variance to reopen those businesses that were open for a short period of time, but then got closed down again. And so we're hoping that we'll continue this trend and have an opportunity to reopen some of our local businesses and have some of our local activities, youth sports and the like, come back. And then the important effort that we're doing in El Segundo is the wearing is carrying face covering campaign. We've distributed approximately 800 masks. Anecdotally, the folks that are out there handing out the masks have indicated that between 80 to 90% of the citizens that they've witnessed are wearing face coverings at distribution sites and around distribution sites. This indicates to me that the community is heeding our recommendation to wear face coverings. And overall, we've been getting very positive feedback from the public in that campaign. And so my apologies, I went a little bit longer than I anticipated, but that's the deck, and I'm available for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Chief. Any improvement in testing turnaround times?
I just read an article, and Quest Lab has moved their test times from 5 days down to 2 days. And so I think we're starting to see labs do a much better job of testing and getting the test results turned around. I know from anecdotal and talking to some people, I know folks that had waited 7+ days for test results, and that's just not an appropriate wait time.
Yeah, week they got their test result within 4 hours.
4 hours, yeah. I've heard as little as 2 hours. 7 days is just not appropriate. So,
okay. Any other questions for Chief?
Chief, Chris Pimentel here. Do we have a trend line on that case rate? I see that it's 245. I know we were sitting at about 330 just a few days ago. If we're at that 0.95 or hovering on the low side of 1, are we seeing a trend line on that we may reasonably be able to expect going under the 100 mark in the near future?
Yeah,
and I know there's a lot of people out there with school-age children that are very, very interested in that number.
Yeah, yes, sir. We're following that really closely. For me, the key for me is if we can get down to a consistent daily increase of 800 or less, that if you do simple math, steady decline in the case load from the 2000s down to the 1500, 3 days ago, we were 1,300. 2 days ago, we were at 1,100. Today, we're at 1,000. So we're trending in the right direction. We're going to really closely monitor that. And my simple math is if we can get the daily case rate at or below 800 on a consistent basis, we should be moving in that right direction. That's a very good question, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other questions for you. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
All right, Barbara Voss is up next under special state.
Good evening, Mayor Boyles, members of council. As the mayor indicated, I'm going to provide an update on the formation of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. For the members of the public, just to give you a frame, directed staff to form this committee on June 16th. After that, we worked on putting together an application and getting the word out that this committee was going to be formed. On July 21st, to council with some implementation recommendations, including eligibility. We asked only that applicants be either living, working, studying, or property owners within the city of El Segundo. So we left it very broad, invited anyone who was interested in participating in this to submit an application. City manager submitted some initial study topics for consideration, and then also recommended hiring a to help guide the process. Then the very next day, City Council had a strategic planning session, and during that session, it was the recommendation of City Council to amend one of our priorities, one of our goals in our strategic plan, the first goal, to include a commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. So that will be implemented, and it'll be our first goal within our strategic plan for the city. And then we worked to locate an expert in this area to serve as a consultant for us with the role of helping with the selection process for the applicants to participate in this committee. We decided that there would be 9, back at that July 21st City Council meeting, we decided there would be 9 members of the committee. And we conducted quite a bit of outreach to try to find someone who would be qualified and would be a good fit for the city of El Segundo and for our current needs. And I'm very pleased to introduce Jimmy Pete. Mr. Pete has been working in this area for over 30 years. There he is on your screen there, and he's available to answer any questions should you have any. He really is a specialist in this area. He works with very diverse individuals, groups, corporations to help to facilitate and team build and empower. And we just really are excited that, given this climate, there's quite a lot of interest in this type of work, and that he accepted our invitation to come work for us. We're just thrilled to have him. He's a graduate of the University of San Francisco in psychology and studied at Oxford University in England. He studied the classics. Yes, I got that right. And just as a wealth of knowledge in this area. So his role will be, as I mentioned, working with City Council to and staff to go through the applications, determine the qualified members, and then also guide that committee and help facilitate as we move forward with the ultimate goal of really achieving some meaningful outcomes and reporting some really great progress back to City Council. So the application process, I just wanted to provide an overview of that. When we were at City Council on July 21st, we extended the application deadline to July 31st, and we did receive 69 applicants by that deadline. So there's really quite a lot of interest in this participate in a commission, committee, or board with the city and volunteer their services to be part of this effort. So with 69 applications, the applications are available. They're public record, or they are available on the website. We are going to be working to candidates are and make those selections. Wanted to recommend to City Council this evening a process with so many applications. I calculated 15 minutes per interview. It comes out to 17 and a half hours we want to make sure that we do a very thorough and comprehensive job. So what we're recommending is that I would work with Mr. Pete to determine some qualifications, some criteria for our applicants, and review the written applications, which are essay type, not essay, but they're paragraph form responses to several questions. So it gives us a good idea of who the applicants are and what their interest is and why they want to be part of this. And so he will look at those fairly and then narrow that list of 69. And that's assuming that all 69 want to move forward to the next step. Narrow that down to the 35 most qualified. And then at that point, Mr. Pete would conduct interviews with each of the 35 applicants via Zoom. And those interviews would be recorded and available to view. And then he would recommend the 20 most qualified among that group to City Council to then conduct public interviews with those 20 applicants, and then make your final recommendation of 9 applicants to be part of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. And then once that is complete, the committee would be formed, and we expect that they would start meeting regularly, maybe monthly, maybe more at first, with all under the guidance of Mr. Pete, and working towards defining their objectives and kind of fleshing out their study areas, and moving forward towards making some recommendations to council. So I don't know if you, Jimmy, wanted to just say hello and introduce yourself briefly.
Hi, folks. Very glad to be here. Mayor Boyles, I think you're asking me when I was first trying to get on if I went to St. Bernard, and I am a Viking for life.
We got a couple friends of mine live in El Segundo, went there, so we'll touch base later about that. I figured.
Very good, very good. I'm so happy to be here and willing to answer any questions. I already have a feeling of love for that whole area of Los Angeles, El Segundo included. I've got a few dear friends there. I grew up in that area, and I'm so happy to come back and contribute what I can to supporting El Segundo to be as wonderful as it wants to be.
Thank you. And that concludes my presentation. If there are any questions for me.
I have a question. It might be for you or Mr. Pete. I think the one area that we're struggling with a little bit is, we'd like to interview all 69. It's probably not practical. Mr. Pete, do you have experience whittling down, vetting a larger group and bringing it down to a smaller size? Have you been through a similar process like that in your travels?
Yes, I have. I've been on selection committees for boards, for staff. I've held 2 directorships in the Bay Area. And so I'm used to, and that's mostly all in the field of some social work, community building. And so usually in that kind of work, there's a large number of people to vet. And, the organizations always have limited amount of resources and time. It's mostly been nonprofit most of my career. So we really had to develop a process by which we fairly reduced the number of people we faced, then to be able to go on and do a fair job of interviewing that smaller group.
Great. And I'm sure we can anticipate that some folks will question our process and the vetting. And so as long as we can demonstrate the process in a very transparent manner, I think we'll be in good stead. So yeah, Lance.
How you doing, Mr. Pete? Nice to meet you. The thing I actually like about the process that we're talking about is out of the 69 people, they're all, I assume the majority of them are in town. The 5 of us, probably, 6 degrees of separation is like 3 degrees of separation in El Segundo. We all probably know most of the individuals. What I like about the vetting process is that you don't have any conflicts. You don't, all you're looking at is the actual applications. You're looking at a name application, but you don't know who the individuals are. And I think, especially for this first part of it, that could be a huge benefit because it's completely unbiased and it's completely transparent.
Yeah. Thank you, Lance. I truly believe what I've heard a couple of people say in that group of folks that walked up is we'll do our best by having every voice represented. People who are new to El Segundo, people who've been there for generations, students, CEOs, and the whole gambit. And I think that it sounds to me like this city's got that kind of interest and motivation where it won't be difficult to get a fair representation of the city.
Excellent. Any other questions? Mayor Pro Tem, Chris.
Mr. Pete and Madam Deputy City Manager, I think that an impetus for this is to ensure that we are not attending any blind spots. And to that end, when you have your first sort of culling of the list, I would strongly urge that whatever that criteria may be, or the subjectivity that's based in training and experience, that goes on the website. So people look this up and they see that we're going from 69 and then the cut down days to 40 and the cut down days to 30. They will know what that criteria is and what our rationale is for that. Because some of these things, we go to experts, whether it's for arborists or to issues like this, and a big part of it is because it is something to which many of us are new or do not have lengthy expertise, and being able to look to a concrete process and exhibit to people involved how we are coming to our decisions is going to be an important part of building trust in this. So that would be my only admonition, and I thank you for coming aboard.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Agreed.
Okay, I don't see any other hands up. Oh, Carol, yeah.
Just wanted to welcome you, Mr. Pete, and we're excited to have you on board. And we look forward to really embracing your committee, and I think you'll be a great add to the process. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I can't imagine doing anything better in life than this kind of work with this kind of talent.
Awesome. All right, thank you so much, sir. We'll see you soon. Okay, procedural motions. Consideration of a motion to read all ordinances and resolutions on the agenda by title only, stating your last name. If you like to make a motion to read all ordinances and resolutions by the title only.
Nickel, so moved.
Nickel,
Okay,
second.
Okay, Nickel on the first, Pimentel on the second. Madam Clerk. Thank you. Voice vote.
Councilmember Giroux? Councilmember Nickel?
Aye.
Councilmember Perstuck?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Pimentel?
Aye.
And Mayor Boyles?
Yes.
Pass 5-0.
Thank you. All right. Are there any one note on the consent calendar? I mentioned this early on, but there's items 1 through 14 on our regular meeting. Then there's item 1 of the special meeting related to vote by mail drop box. So they're all together. Are there any polls? No. Okay. Do I have a motion to approve items 1 through 4, everything on the consent calendar?
Giroux, so moved.
Mr. Mayor, I think Mr. Nickel has a question.
Sorry.
It's for Tracy. Tracy, item number 5 is something that I cannot vote on, so I can vote on all items except 5, correct?
Yes. And
Okay.
I'll note that in the minutes.
Thank you.
Okay, we had Councilmember Giroux at the first. The second?
Second.
First took for the second. Okay. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Giroux?
Aye.
Councilmember Nickel, except for item number 5?
Aye.
Councilmember Perstuck?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Pimentel?
Aye.
And Mayor Boyles?
Yes.
All right, consent and item number 1 from the special all pass.
Great, thank you, Madam Clerk. Item D, staff presentations, ratify the city manager's administrative order number 1 to address COVID-19, which addresses reopening of restaurants, retail food facilities, and retail operations in the city of El Segundo, which was revised on July 16th, 2020. Mr. Mitnick, who will report on this?
On?
You're on. We can hear
Okay.
you.
So Barbara Voss is going to give you, do a quick presentation on this. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, good evening again. As Chief Donovan mentioned, we are keeping a very close eye on the county's orders and protocols and making adjustments as needed to adhere to those requirements. And back in July, we revised our administrative order to allow for the opening of restaurants. In particular, it's the outdoor dining component that we removed some of the restrictions for and the time period for applying for a temporary use permit or a temporary encroachment permit, and also waived the fees for those permits and some of the reviews that are typically require the parking requirements. So we're asking City Council this evening to ratify that revision to the administrative order.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Voss. Any questions? Yeah, Councilmember Perstock.
Yeah, I have a question. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about is the timeline. I know we had, when initially we had said like post Labor Day was kind of the cutoff. Have we had discussion and notification to these restaurants to allow them to extend it post Labor Day as far as the outdoor dining?
Scott, did you want to take that one, or you jump back on?
Well, the answer that yes, we're coming back to you on September 1st, the next meeting, the week right before Labor Day. We'll give you an update report, and I'll give you the heads up on that. We're likely to recommend that we extend that by a period of time, because it's working so well.
I do know that some restaurants want to invest in some additional equipment, and
Right.
I want them to have confidence in being able to purchase that, not expecting them to be closed down as of Labor Day. So I think the earliest that we can communicate to that information to the restaurants and to the other businesses, I think is a good thing, so that they can then invest the money to operate without feeling that they're going to then be shut down again.
Right. We hear you loud and clear, Council, and that's what we're striving for as your staff, and it'd be helpful to the businesses. The challenging thing for us is everything is real temporary and not necessarily complying with the normal way to do things in terms of codes and so on. So we're going to have to find that delicate balance that achieves all objectives. So it's not a wet blanket. It's just letting you know that we'll have the can-do attitude and get it done. And we'll be back right in front of you at the next meeting with the details how to do it. Thank you.
And then I had one other question. So I know we did quite a bit of outreach. We, put it on our website. There was some email notifications. But has there been any businesses that we feel have not heard us, that we are willing to partner with them and ensure that they are successful? I mean, is there any other way we could to help increase the communication?
Yeah.
Are we knocking on doors? I just want to make sure that all businesses know that we as a council really want to ensure their success, and we are open to partnering with them.
Right. So when we first started allowing for this, and we were talking about the closure of a portion of Richmond, me and other members of the economic development team, well, the other member, Christina, did go door to door, and if we couldn't talk to someone in person, we put a letter in an envelope on their door, because we just didn't want any of those businesses to come home one day and find that the street had been closed in front of their business. So we did email, we did social media, we did surveying, we did in person, and we did letters hand delivered. So we do a significant amount of outreach, to all businesses. We have an email distribution that we've been using and publishing regular updates and newsletters. So it's in there, but there's also that one-on-one, just as we're walking down Main Street or visiting a business over on Rosecrans, we want to make sure that all businesses are aware of what they can do to safely reopen. About outdoor dining on Rosecrans, because the previous one was on downtown, but there's a lot of opportunity in other areas where other restaurateurs are getting very creative and opening up their patios and bringing tables outside and creating a really nice environment for people to come and patronize those businesses. So yes, we are doing a lot of communication, and we will continue that effort to make sure that the businesses are aware, and also working with the Chamber of Commerce. They're really great about talking with the business community as well.
Thanks, Barbara.
Sure.
Similar to Carol's point, early on, we'd asked staff to look at the number of businesses that could open that hadn't yet as a way to help them along. Maybe there's an opportunity to revisit that as we go to these next phases, which nail salons are open, which aren't, and why, just so we can bring attention to it. And to Carol's point, continue to help these businesses.
Yeah, and exactly. So we are, the nail salons are good. Any kind of temporary use or temporary encroachment is not a negative on any of the businesses around. So we look at each case individually to see, if it makes sense for that particular area, and work with that business to come up with solutions that will work. But we can certainly start to look at, I know the nail salons in the downtown area and the barber shops, we can look at that more comprehensively and make sure just to check in to make sure that they're aware.
Great. Okay, looks like that's it for that. So we need to vote on this, right? Okay.
Oops. I think you froze, Drew. You just need a motion to ratify.
Oh, I made a motion. I froze.
Okay, sorry.
That's my,
Nichols, second.
Okay. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Drew. Froze. Councilmember Nickel?
Aye.
Councilmember Perset?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Pimentel?
Yes.
And Mayor Boyles?
Yes.
All right, the ratification passed 5-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay, item 16, receive and file a presentation from FilmLA Public Benefit Organization, which provides a streamlined film permit process and production planning services. Mr. Mitnick?
Finance Director Joe Lilio and our consultant will give you a presentation that will be less than 7 minutes.
Thank you.
I have a timer, and the consequences will be so noted. All right, go ahead, Joe. The clock is going.
Okay, well, good evening, Mayor Boyles, City Council members. So representative from FilmLA, Donna Washington, will give a brief presentation on the benefits of the city partnering with FilmLA. This may look familiar to some of you. She gave a similar presentation about 1.5 years ago. We're bringing this back and with staff talking about maybe moving forward with partnering with them. Donna.
Am I up?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Good evening, Honorable Mayor Boyles and City Council members. Like I said, I'm Donna Washington, Vice President of Operations at FilmLA. I'm going to do a really brief presentation for you this evening. We are a private nonprofit organization with 25 years of experience as the official film office for 20 jurisdictions. We offer pre-production planning and film permit coordination, also additional services for filmmakers to provide for a successful filming experience for our filmmakers and for the communities in which they film. The areas we serve, currently the blue areas are the areas that we do serve, so that includes LA County, Santa Monica, Fullerton, Newport Beach. So we basically have a range from as far north as Lancaster, Palmdale to Newport Beach and Fullerton. We also serve 6 school districts, including LA Unified. And what we do for them is we handle their license agreements. So location expertise, since we've been doing this for 25 years, Some of the things that we do offer for our filmmakers is a free online location library. And so as a filmmaker, when you're looking for locations quickly, it's helpful when the jurisdictions that you serve, they can go to a quick place. This is what we call Local Scout. It's www.localscout.com if you want to take a look at it. It works like a realtor.com. You plug in a location, an area, maybe you want an auditorium. As a location manager, you can download the photographs that are here, send them to your director of photography. It gives you specs on costs, restrictions, guidelines, if the areas are off limits for a certain period of time. All that information is in this area. So this is as part of our marketing for you if we became your partner. Back to our core services. So there is advanced production planning offered through our Solution Services Department. There are 5 people in that department, and what happens if you need to find out any information about filming in any jurisdictions that we do serve, you can call these folks and they can give you all the details, frequency, history, if there's a next door neighbor who doesn't want a generator parking through their home, if there are restrictions on filming, if there are conditions. And so as a filmmaker, you can make a budget and figure out if a location makes sense for you. Also, as part of our role, we do neighborhood. And what you see is these are delivered door to door. And on the back side, they have basically the production information, all the activity, parking, base camp, location manager's information, assistant location manager, and our information down here. And so it's standard notification for all the locations that we do coordinate permits for. And it's delivered to every single resident, every single business. In that group, which is called Field Services, we also do offer to our jurisdictions on location monitoring. We got 30 folks where you need an extra pair of eyes. You need someone to be able to get a hold of in case there are problems. So our monitors are our eyes and ears in the street, and they work as a PR function, basically. They get there an hour before the location arrives, and they are the last persons to leave the location. They take pictures, they document everything, and so if there are any questions, we have them. We have all that information for you. We also have a community relations arm made of 4 folks, and they are boots on the ground. So if you have a commercial area that is sensitive, that has meetings that want someone to represent, we will send them there. If there are individual merchants, business owners, residents, homeowners or groups, they attend those meetings and they basically educate and they mitigate concerns. So pretty much this is our ecosystem. So a permit comes in through our filmmakers, they apply for the permit, they get assigned a coordinator, and they can actually go online to see what the status is. If it's they can see fees, they can upload documents, and then this kind of translate to their clients. When we get the request, we send it directly to our approvers in all our departments for review. So fire, police, public works will review the permit, or whatever departments you deem that need to review the permit. We'll look at it. They don't have to be in their tethered to a desk or an office, as long as they have a smartphone. Our system is online. It's an online permitting system. So if they have a smartphone, they can upload that information. They could look at the request. They can approve it, deny it. If you want to see invoices to us, you can upload that information. If you need reporting, we do provide quarterly reports, but if you want frequency information, you can gather all that information from us online. In terms of our communities, we are delivering the door-to-door notification. They can call us. They can also get a hold of us online through FilmLAinfo.com if they have concerns, if they have complaints, which are resolved or answered within 10 to 15 minutes. So if they want to sign up for an account and they want to look at an old film permit, they could get an account and go online and download those old permits. So the benefits to El Segundo. You retain 100% of the authority. These permits that we generate are not ours, they are yours. We do all the legwork. We handle all the complaints, we do the accounting for you, we do the marketing for you. This also offers potential to reduce your paperwork. Since it is a green system, it's an online system, there's very little paper involved unless a location manager wants to print out the permit, but most locations phone and show you their permit on their phone. But this also reduces the amount of staff work in dealing with production. You know, if you work with production, you know, there are constant calls back and forth when they want to request something. It's never ever the original request. This also gives you the ability to develop additional sources of revenue. A lot of companies, when they know that we are partnering with the city, will tend to, you know, gravitate to those cities because they know it's easier. The process is easier. You will also eliminate bad debt. Under our contract, we are obligated to pay you 100%. So if a company leaves town and they have not paid, you don't have to worry about it. And actually partnering with us, you get a reputation for being film friendly. We only partner with film friendly cities and you know, school districts. And I mentioned the local scout, which I showed you earlier. So when you do get a chance, please take a look at it. It's really interesting. And to wrap this up, how our relationship with El Segundo benefits the industry. It's a standard process. They can go online anytime, apply for a permit for any of the jurisdictions that we offer. There are best practices that we have in place, you know, across jurisdictions on how to work. We followed what we call the Model Film Ordinance, and if you're not familiar with it, it's up on the California Film Commission website. It's something that we partnered with the California Film Commission, the LA Economic Development Corporation on creating. It's a common sense way to attract production to your city. So, did I meet the 5-minute deadline to do this presentation? Because we're at the question section. 5 minutes? 5 minutes?
Actually, 8 minutes, 26 seconds. Joe will make up for that by reducing the water and wastewater presentation from 20 minutes to 18 minutes and 34 seconds.
I want to open up, I know I went pretty quickly through that. I want to open up to questions.
I got a question. Thank you. I would assume we still maintain the same level of control in terms of allowing, okay. And then one thing I just want to clarify more for the public than anyone else is that the way the government code works, Joe, you could correct me if I'm wrong here, is that we can really only pass on the cost, our burden cost of doing business. It's not really a profit source unless you're a school district. Is that right, Joe? Or did I get that wrong?
Right. If there's street closures, we do have some permit fees related to that. We do get some other fees if there's staff time involved for, you know, doing inspections or helping with traffic control. That is correct. It's the fully burdened rate is.
It's an offset essentially, right? Or it's supposed to be, I think, by design, right? Okay. That's all I had.
If I can make.
Yeah.
There is a lot of tax generation, though, that is a result of the production companies coming into town, sales tax, TOT, they stay at the hotel. So there is revenue generation from resulting from the production.
Yeah, I get that. Thank you.
Amir, do provide to you or for free to you. We get our revenue from charging an application fee of $6.99. And what a company gets is they can put up to 10 locations that cover a 2-week span of time on that permit. We will coordinate cross jurisdictions for that permit for them. So that's it. All the things that we do for you under contract are free.
Thank you for that. Appreciate that. Okay. Any other questions, Carol?
I have one question, Ms. Washington. Is what percentage of the increase of have you incurred as a result? Like, have you seen the number of applications in an area increase as a result of them adopting this program?
Actually, yes. I will real quickly. City of Vernon, years ago, we partnered with them, and they didn't have very much filming. And we came and did a presentation a year into it. True Detective came to us and said, towards City of Vernon, their permit volume doubled immediately, and the city kind of freaked out. They were like, "Oh my God, now we have all this production." And we said, "Well, there would be interest, and so this is what you're seeing." This is definitely, you know, where they've gone from pretty much very little production to, you know, multiple permits, you know, per month. But that was probably I know it was kind of funny to me because when we got the call about, oh my God, there's another production, they just shot here last week, now they're here again, and I hear that they're going to be here next week. What's going on? We said, well, they were curious about the process. They tried it; it's easier, and now they want to be based there. And so, True Detective ended up being there for 4 seasons. So, you're welcome.
Any other questions or comments? If not, we're going to go. Okay. Do we have consensus to receive and file? I think so. Anyone opposed? No. Okay, we're good. Thank you very much for your time, Ms. Washington. Appreciate it.
Have a good evening.
You as well. Thank you. All right. Next up, we have item 17, which is going to present a very interesting process, one I haven't experienced before on council. So this is to authorize the city manager to develop and issue an RFP, request for proposals from planning consultants to update or replace the downtown specific plan, and also to request for qualifications, RFQ from developers to redevelop and repurpose the Civic Center site. And I believe the city attorney is going to explain the conflict of interest process and how this is going to unfold.
And can you not share your screen just quite yet? We need to do the pulling of the ping pong balls. Thank you.
Yes, Mayor and Council. In this particular circumstance with the items that are before the council, there are 4 of you with conflicts of interest. And so if that were to remain to be the case, it would only be one council member, Councilmember Giroux, that doesn't have a conflict of interest. And just to put these on the record, as we're required to do, the mayor has a conflict due to the location and proximity of his business. He owns that real property, and its distance from both the downtown Civic Center site and also the downtown specific plan area. The mayor pro tem, Pimentel, has his employer has a business relationship with entities that may wish to participate in this process. Not his company would not be working with those entities on this process, but because of that, he has potential conflict. Council member Perstick has conflict because of the location for business and residence as it is close to the downtown specific plan area. And also Councilmember Nickel has his office location in the downtown specific plan area. So based upon that, in order to get a quorum for purpose of acting on these items, the Fair Political Practices Commission, which has jurisdiction over conflicts of interest issues in the state of California, has what's called the rule of necessity. That rule allows those that have a conflict to draw on a random basis and to rehabilitate, if you will, 2 of the council members in this case, so that there would be 3 then which would be allowed to participate, thus making for a quorum. And so after discussing this with the clerk's office, city manager, what they're going to do tonight is there are, and I believe Mr. Lilio, the finance director, and the assistant city clerk, Mona Schilling, have 4 ping pong balls that they've put the 4 council members' names on with the conflicts. And could you show those 4 balls with the names on them?
There. Carol.
And there's the empty container they will be placed in, and 2 will be randomly drawn from.
Pimentel. Mr. Nickel. Mayor.
And so they will draw out 2 names. And this is not an irregular thing that happens in El Segundo. We've had a number of these in the past. First time that we've had 4 council members that I recall, but we've had to do a random draw selection like this in the past. So it is not uncommon. So if you want to go ahead and draw the 2 names out. So council will be allowed to participate.
Tem Pimentel.
Okay, so the Mayor Pro Tem Pimentel and Councilmember Perstick will be allowed to participate along with Councilmember Giroux. And as otherwise, then during this process, the mayor and Councilmember Nichol will be put in the waiting room while this discussion occurs.
So Mr. Pimentel, you are up for taking over for Mayor Boyles.
Very well. Mr. Mitnick, who will give the presentation? Will that be Mr. Lilio or Mr. Cosmont?
For this report, it'll be Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and members of the council. For this, it'll be myself and Sam Lee, the planning director. And you mentioned Larry Cosmont. He is here on standby in case there are questions. His firm is providing us assistance with this effort, as well as Will Silholt from Cosmont's firm. He is here as well. So it's my opportunity, or it's my pleasure actually, to be able to present this to the City Council. Let me, Sam, you're controlling the slides, so I'll call attention to the screen. There are two components tonight. One has to do with the downtown specific plan. The other has to do with potential repurposing of the Civic Center site. So the agenda for tonight we'll talk a little bit about your strategic plan and how it's related to what's in front of you, and then we'll talk about the proposed request for proposals for the downtown specific plan. Sam Lee will talk about that, and then I will talk about the proposed request for qualifications to move forward on looking at potentially repurposing the Civic Center site. And then we will talk about the schedule, the next steps to do this. This presentation shouldn't take that long. And then when we're done with that, we'll be happy to entertain questions. Okay, just by way of a reminder, well, why are we here with these two items at this time? The short answer is we're following your direction to take a look at the downtown. And if I can go to the next slide, please. In the strategic plan that was just in front of City Council for you to look at, the 3-year strategic plan, you took a look at it back on July 22nd, I believe. And we went through that and you made some changes to that. But if we can go to the next slide. Your goal number 5 is entitled Champion Economic Development and Fiscal Stability. And within that, there are 3, well, we talked about 3 in the staff report, but there's actually 4 items, 3 priorities and 1 activity that relate to the downtown. And we'll go to the next page to talk about those. The first is to identify further infrastructure and downtown improvements for Main Street. So basically, you directed staff improve the appearance of Main Street and the infrastructure that serves that. The second one was to conduct a study of repurposing City Hall. And for the purpose of this agenda item in this presentation, we're by City Hall, we're going to make reference to this the Civic Center site. Another area that's not in the report, but we decided to put it in the slide here, is you called for identifying areas within the community that are appropriate for housing. There is housing in the downtown, certainly housing around the downtown, and there's an opportunity to do something with housing in the downtown. And then the 4th item calls for reimagining the downtown, which includes developing a vision, beautification, promoting the downtown, and creating a funding source for marketing it. So that's why we're here. We're here to follow up on your direction and to move forward in these areas. Go to the next slide, please. So I'm going to turn it over to Sam now, and he will talk about the downtown specific plan. And to help to get started, the map or the aerial that you see there shows the city as a whole within the red line, and then the downtown area within the yellow line. So I'm going to hand it off now to Planning Director Sam Lee. Thank you.
Thank you. So downtown is, as Scott mentioned, it's shown in yellow. It's roughly about 26 acres. This is a blow up of downtown. El Segundo downtown is surrounded by mostly residential zones, R2 and R3 zones. Smoky Hollow is to the southeast and Chevron is to the south. As you can see, the Civic Center is located in the heart of downtown. So 20 years ago, city adopted the current downtown specific plan to advance some of these visions, promote walkability, reverse declining retail, promote restaurants, encourage outdoor dining, public events, more parking, improve open space, historic preservation, and more housing, which has been effective to a point. And to encourage further growth, city has amended the specific plan on several occasions. Yet downtown hasn't seen a significant project in some time. Staff believes in order to build on downtown's best features and be ready for post-COVID recovery and the future of downtown, and to reimagine downtown, city needs to revisit the downtown specific plan and find the best zoning tools to develop and implement a new vision for downtown. So what's the next step? Next step is to go out for an RFP, and through a competitive RFP process, select a consultant team, a combination of planners, environmental specialists, and public relations group who has experience in downtown revitalization projects, has the right approach to public outreach, and has proven track record of success. And from a timeline perspective, if approved tonight, if council gives direction to move forward, an RFP will go out in September, and a consultant team will be selected by early next year. And the work will commence with public outreach will be one of the first elements, and it'll take roughly 14 months. And so with that, I'm gonna, Scott's gonna talk about the Civic Center site.
Okay, so, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, council members. So two-prong approach, that was prong one. Take a look at the specific plan, it's 20 years old. And it's time for it to be refreshed, updated, revised, whatnot. And then related to that, on a parallel track, it's recommended that we take a look at repurposing the Civic Center site per your strategic plan. The slide that you see there shows an outline of what is the Civic Center property. So it's bounded by Main Street, which was on, and then we would be east of that. By Grand, we would be north of Grand, and then we are west of Standard, and we are south of Hawley. Essentially, it contains your fire department headquarters, fire station 1, police department headquarters at the main station, the station, and then the city hall, administrative offices, and the council chamber, as well as the courtyard. And this is the city's focal point, the people's house. This is where the local democracy is conducted on a daily basis. So it's a large chunk of land in our downtown. It is theoretically possible for these uses to be reconfigured or relocated. Lots of exciting possibilities. But I will tell you, we can't drive that as a municipality because we're not in the land use development business, and we don't have the power of redevelopment anymore. El Segundo had never had a redevelopment agency, but historically cities had that power and that ability. Sam, let's go to the next slide. So now you know where that is. Talk about the timing. So let me just make a comment though on what's involved with repurposing. As I mentioned, we don't really know as a city. We have some ideas, and staff has some ideas what may or may not be. But the bottom line here, it's best to reach out to the development community, have them give us their qualifications as to why we should work with them, and we can listen to them and take their recommendations as to what options might be for the Civic Center site. And then a plan can be submitted from that. So if you look at the slide that's on the screen, we're recommending that we do these on parallel tracks. So to the above the red line, you see that would be the downtown specific plan schedule timeline going forward. And then below that would be the Civic Center repurposing schedule. Both start right away in September, and you can the RFP and RFQ documents would take place right away. Interviews would be held with the different companies that submit. And then when it come back to council, well, there's a whole process we would go through to get there. Then we come back to council with a recommendation. Council would approve. That takes a little more than half a year, if not longer. And then once a planning consultant is selected to deal with the specific plan update, and a developer is selected to deal with looking at repurposing, then there's a whole series of steps that would take place, including fairly extensive public outreach and public input. And then the work on both of these would be impacted based on that input. And then there's another set of steps that have to take place. On the specific plan side, you have to go through the whole EIR process. It's very involved, it's extensive. And on that aspect, then it would go to the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission would have a lot of input on the specific plan. And then ultimately, the Planning Commission's recommendation would come to City Council. On a parallel track, the developers work on reimagining the Civic Center site, and with some options that would then come to the Planning Commission too. And this is in the latter part of the year 2022. And then both would come to the City Council thereafter, essentially 2 years later in September 2022. We're not sure on the exact timing. They probably would not be on the same night, but they would be very close. And it's possible you can have some gaps in there. But I will tell you, this is an exciting process to do it this way, the two-prong approach, with both pieces sort of influencing the other. So that concludes the staff presentation. We're happy to answer questions. Again, I want to remind you, you do have Larry Cosmott here, the owner principal of Cosmott firm, his consulting firm. He's been doing this for 3 decades plus. His offices are on the wrong side of Rosecrans, over there in that city to the south of us. So he is part of the fabric of the community. He lives and works in our immediate region. So he's got a vested interest in the success of this. So having said that, Council, we are available for questions or comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mitnick. With that, we will go for council questions or comments. Councilmember Giroux.
Good presentation. Just quick, in your opinion, what is the biggest barrier we face to development downtown and getting these things done? I know in the past it's been things like parking and outdated or what we feel is outdated rules and regulations, but what's going to get in the way of us getting this done?
So I will address that, and then if Larry Cosmott doesn't mind, if he doesn't mind, he can share his experience in other cities. I'll tell you here, in the past, it's been parking has been one of the biggest obstacles, conflicting. We have all these different zones within the downtown, and just a lot of false starts, complications with ownership of properties, different owners and all of that. But you know what? I'm not going to provide any blame. I'm going to tell you how we go forward will be radically different. We're in a COVID-19 environment. Land use will be much different going forward. And if you'll indulge me, I'd like to hand it off to Larry Cosmott. I think he'll do a much better job than I'm attempting to do. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think the obstacles are twofold. The first are your typical regulatory obstacles, which I think were already referenced, you know, things like outdated regulations, which include limitations on density. And density is often a stumbling block for many communities, but in a COVID world, rooftops right next to amenities, the whole project mix and the approach to blended use is changing right as we see it. It's unfolding. And so I think that one of the obstacles, but also opportunities, is for the community to learn about not only what it wants, but what the development community sees as being viable and workable going forward. Parking is much different today because as we return to a post-COVID economy, we've already seen the patterns of walking and transit, as well as personal vehicles and delivery services, all have changed the context of parking in terms of the amount needed and the hours of utilization. And so we're going to find that beyond our regulatory framework, the challenges will be to identify a vision that we absolutely agree with as a community and identify a developer who can deliver on that vision, recognizing that any vision we're likely to get is going to ask for significantly more density than perhaps this community has looked at before, perhaps a blend of uses that is different, which could cause the relocation of some of the public facilities that exist on the Civic Center site to other locations, and possibly even the kinds of tenancies. You know, I think we would have all probably said that, you know, retail would have been that it's a blend of services as well as retail, that any service that causes a trip becomes accretive to a viable downtown. When I say services, that could be education, that could be medical, that could be special events, and all of those kinds of uses that communities have not been used to looking at as part of a downtown or a predominant part of downtown are going to be new visions. And so we think that the reason this two-pronged approach is so compelling is that we have a need in El Segundo to update regulations, for sure. The specific plan will take care of that in the vision. But we also have a need to understand what this new economy looks like. And so we have this great opportunity to interact with the developer concurrently while we're considering our own uses, our own preferences, and bring them together in this process to achieve the best result. Open-mindedness, perseverance, careful evaluation is really what this process has to be about in order for us to get the best result as a community.
Thank you.
Councilmember Pierstick.
Yeah, so I just have one question. So I'm just looking at the timeline. It talks about public outreach post the city council approval of the RFP. And I just wanted to find out about that because, I mean, we obviously are a strong community, and as you saw today, our community is very engaged, and I want to ensure that their voice is heard before we have city council approval. And I also want to ensure that there's a complete transparency with this process so that all parties who want to participate can, and their voices be heard. So I'm a little just questioning why public outreach would be post city council.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and members of the council, can you hear me? It's froze.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to clarify that. When the items come back to council initially, it'll be in a public setting, so the public will see the report and can provide input through that process. So, there will be a wide net cast for consultants on the planning side and developers on the repurposing of the Civic Center site, a wide net. So we're going to do extensive outreach to get proposals from as many firms and developers as possible.
That's correct, Scott. And I would maybe add one more thing is, so, you know, we're going to go through an RFP process, and we'll go through a consultant selection process. The city council approval that you see before public outreach will be the approval we want from council to the consultant that we recommend approval, and to we would get your consent to use our general plan maintenance fund to be able to go forward with the project. The city council approval isn't any more than that, just to approval of the consultant and to authorize the use of the funds so that public outreach and the zoning process and EIR can proceed.
If I could just add, I think the primary benefit to the community and to all of you as council members is that we are identifying in the RFP that outreach is a critical element of the process, and you'll be able to determine that it's what you expect or want before you approve the actual consultant who's going to perform the outreach. So this really gives you, I think, the front door perspective of what their approach is and what your expectations are. If they don't match, we shouldn't select that developer. So I think that consultant, excuse me. So I think this is your optimal approach to make sure that that platform of transparency is actually properly delivered by that consultant.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further, Carol?
No, I'm good.
Yeah, I think, and I think it is worth pointing out that this program or this potential project does not obligate the city to anything. I think that in the spirit of looking at how we develop the city and how the city evolves, part of it involves looking at how these specific and special zones have been stitched together and if there's a better way to do it. Because you can see how this has evolved as a patchwork of not necessarily congruous uses around downtown. Clearly that northeast corner of the most iconic intersection of El Segundo could be used for something besides a parking lot for our police and fire departments. You know, there are elements to that we look at and say, is this the best use? So I would, on behalf of this, advocate having a good look at it and seeing, are we constructed in a way that suits the future of what we'd like it to look at? I know, and I've in the past made light of some of the archaic parts of our city and admin code, but I remember the feeling of the Smoky Hollow specific plan and seeing potential bidders on projects who were concerned because it didn't fit with the city's billiard code. And I make light of our fortune teller code, but it exists. We have a circus code. I mean, that exists. And those are all things that are stitched and woven into our commercial and mixed use areas that restrict our ability to enjoy them in the best way, and especially these iconic pieces of it. So I think having a look at it is certainly well worth the use. And if we come up with a plan, it would likely yield the benefits that we would like in all the parts of our strategic plan goal. So with that in mind, I would put it to my two fellow council members here. Would someone like to make a motion to pass this?
Yes, Giroux so moves.
And Perstick second.
Madam Clerk, can we put this to a vote, please?
Certainly can. Let me go down my list. Who's left? Councilmember Giroux?
Yes.
Councilmember Perstuck?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Pimentel?
Yes.
All right, so it's a voice vote and it passes 3-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Let everyone else back.
I will surrender the gavel.
City Council, thank you. It's an exciting time.
Now I believe you have everyone. There's Scott. There's you. You're all back.
I apologize, a bit of a delay between what you hear on the video cast versus what's actually happening apparently. Okay. We are on to the water presentation, I believe. Hold on, bear with me. Yes, item 18. Receive and file preliminary financial plan and proposed rates for fiscal year 2020 through 2024 rate study of recycled water, and wastewater operations. Mr. Mitnick, who's reporting on this?
Okay, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, our finance director, Joe Lilio, and our talented consultant, financial expert will do this. Their time limit is very strict, 18 minutes, 34 seconds. Not funny, Joe. Gotta deliver. Okay. Thank you. I'll turn it over to our finance director.
All right, so I'm gonna have to skip the formal presentation then in order to meet that strict timeline. But good evening, Mayor Boyles. So we do have this item before you. So receive and file the preliminary financial report. And then we will be coming back on September 1st to bring the final financial report and receive authorization to proceed with the Prop 218 process. So Representative from Raftella, Sanjay, is here and he'll give the presentation.
Thank you, Joe. Good evening, City Council members, City Council members, staff, and public. I'd like to do my presentation associated with this, and I just realized I could, sorry, showing the wrong screen. Let me do this again. All righty, so now I think you see the right screen, and now we can get started on this presentation. Hopefully my minutes don't count right now. Hopefully it starts right now. So today I'd like to present the water, wastewater, rate study discussion. I'm hoping that after my presentation, if you have any questions, you can ask me then. Today we're going to be going over the study overview, discussing the preliminary results associated with the financial plan, rates, look at recycled rates, water, wastewater, and schedule. So what we're talking about today is the process associated with developing a rate study. I met with you in January, as you may recall, where we talked about the goals and objectives of the study. That's the first step of the study. The second step of the study is the financial plan, where we look at the cash flow associated with funding CIP, operating costs, and the revenues that are needed to meet these costs. Second part of the study is what we call cost of service, where we actually look at the cost structure of your business and allocate the cost structure into rates. We need to do that because of Prop 218. Once we've done that, then we can look at rate impact, which is what I'll be presenting you today. And then we go into final adoption. In this process today, we are here at the cost of service part of the study. We're a critical part of the study. Once we receive direction, then we'll go into developing the report, which is a critical part of the study, and then start with the Prop 218 notice of public hearing. Cost of service requirement is a critical aspect of the study, and sort of the cornerstone of a study is Prop 218, which states that rates need to be proportional. The rates have to reflect the cost of providing that service. There is a bandwidth in that area that we need to design the rates. One of the key aspects of that is that there can't be any subsidy between users. We need to make sure that the rates are justifiable and logical. The standard I like to use is the rates can't be arbitrary or capricious. So that's the main thing I like to do. So that's one side of Prop 218. The other side is the procedural side. There needs to be an administrative record. That's the next step of my study, where we're going to develop a report that explains the logic and rationality with the rates. There's a 45-day noticing requirement where you will be telling all property owners regarding the public hearing. They have the ability to protest. City Council can consider the rate increase as long as the majority of people do not protest. Observation, the waterfront is healthy. Rates just needs to be realigned to reflect current operational costs. So we want to do that and just to, again, meet the Prop 218 requirement. Wastewater, unfortunately, is not that healthy. There are some challenges there with the fund balances. In addition, we have had significant increase in costs with the City of LA associated with treatment. Basically, it's increased by 91% since 2017. This is basically a $28 cost in a single family bill. So we need to cover that cost, and that is one of the major challenges with wastewater, and we need to, again, realign the cost to reflect the operational. So with recycle rates, there are three components of your operation of your system. You have a recycle rate, water, and wastewater. Recycled 100% purchased from West Basin Municipal Water District. It operates this non-potable system. You can see some information associated with the different users associated with it. Basically, the city's business on the recycled side is that it charges a fixed charge based on meter size. It has a surcharge, and then it also has what West Basin charges, which is just a pass-through. Now, our proposed suggestions with the recycled surcharge is that all customers that have a meter will still pay this meter charge as potable. We still continue the surcharge that we have with Chevron, and that surcharge should increase at the same percentage as potable water rates. The surcharge is because it's a contract with Chevron that Chevron signed with the city. It helps you with keeping the rates affordable for users. So that's a great thing that you have that ability to do that, to have that surcharge. It's a contract that falls out of Prop 218. What we're recommending is that the city and non-city customers, except for Chevron, do not pay a surcharge. They just pay the fixed meter charge. Next, with the water rate discussion. As water rate, El Segundo is 100% dependent on West Basin for its imported water. It does not produce or treat water. It's just operates the potable system. And Chevron is also a very large user of the potable water. 50% of the water use is from Chevron. The cost structure is right over here where we have the different operating costs associated with the system and capital. One of the things you'll note is that more than 50% of the cost, 11 million, 13 million, is from third party, West Basin. So very small cost is yours. A lot of this is all passed through that you're just passing through. So as I mentioned, the water fund is healthy. That's a great thing. And what we're just recommending in this January 21 is just a realignment to the rates to meet Prop 218. So we're not asking for additional revenues to meet operating costs, to fund capital, or to meet any fund balances for risk in the future. What we are suggesting in the out years is a 3% increase. And that 3% increase is really just to cover imported water supply costs, which again is a pass-through cost. So West Basin is going to be Metropolitan Water District, which is the large importer, pass cost to West Basin. That cost then gets passed to you. And we're just asking that you also pass that cost. Now, there's three components of a water rate structure. There's a fixed charge, which covers some of the fixed supply costs, covers the cost of maintaining the meters and customer service to issuing the bill. Second component is the tiers and the tier width for residential. We want to align that with current consumption patterns. So we did some analysis and we would like to realign those tier width. And the third is the commodity, which basically covers the water supply, the delivery, and the peaking costs associated with your system. Next, what I want to show you is our proposed fixed charge associated for your customers. What we want to do, one of the critical things is here is we want to use best industry practices with everything we're doing. And one of those is using AWWA, that's the American Water Works Association, the standard, industry standard, with capacity ratios. Larger your meter, more instantaneous capacity you have in the system, more reach, more use of the water you can use instantaneously. Sort of in some senses metaphorically like a bandwidth on your internet system when you can subscribe for your internet at home. So this reflects that based on the capacity ratio, and we want to design the rates based on that. Again, we want to meet that proportionality to cost of service. So this is the fixed charge that West Basin charges you. This is the meter charge to maintain the meters. This is the customer service cost, which is basically the same, to issue the bill, to have someone. We add that all together, we have the proposed rates. Again, the administrative record that we will be developing will clearly show you the math and how the justification of that is. But again, we can't be arbitrary and capricious. We can't subsidize certain meter sizes. We need to make sure everyone pays its fair share. Because of that, this is your current rate. This is the proposed rate. So you see some changes. And those changes, you know, some customers will see a more increase, such as the 5/8, 3/4, which is typically most of your single family residential customers. And then some other customers may see a slight decrease in their bill. Again, we need to do this because of Prop 218. Next component, as I mentioned in the water, is the tiers. We want to realign that to consumption pattern. So tier 1 is basically, we looked at the average winter use. That's 9 units. We bill in these, what we call CCFs. So a 100 cubic feet. That is what we're using for tier 1. Tier 2 is 13. Again, we looked at the consumption data. We looked at actual consumption that people in El Segundo use. That's 13 and anything above that. For the tiers and the justification of the tiers, what we do is we look at the cost of buying water from West Basin. We look at the delivery cost, that's the average demand. We also look at the peaking costs. Your system is designed for the hottest day plus fire. So if you think about how we use water, tend to use water in the morning and the evening, when we wake up, when we go to bed. So that's peak hour. There's also peak day, which could occur today, given how hot it was, the record heat that we're experiencing. So these are how the system's designed. It's designed for that capacity. Again, similar to your internet, your bandwidth, when everyone wants to use the internet at home. You want to have that capacity so you can watch, everyone can watch their TV program. So we want to have that capacity in the water system too. Revenue offsets are other sources of revenue that do not fall under Prop 218. One is interest income, and also the other one is the Chevron that I mentioned, the surcharge. So what we can do is we have this logic that costs you $3.35 to buy water from West Basin. That's the actual cost with a little loss factor. We have the base charge, we have the peaking, we have the revenue offsets. We add those all up together, and we have the tier justification. One of the things that we are proposing is that only tiers will be applied to single family, non-residential will have a uniform rate, and Chevron will have its own uniform rate, just a flat rate. Here's the current, here's the proposed rates. As you can see, there are some realignment changes here. The non-residential customers have it tiered currently. We're just suggesting that be 417. Chevron is basically in the higher tier because of the high water use. So really the comparison is 466 to 490. Now, impacts to customers. There are some impacts to your customers. What we're showing you here is the different usage levels. This is a typical single family customer. This is your current bill, 2020. This is the proposed bill for 21 January, and these are the dollar changes. The main reason why we're seeing these increases for residential customers is the adjustment on the meter charge, as I mentioned earlier, and fixing that up. I can't emphasize how important it is to have rates that are based on the cost of providing that service, and there's a logic and rationality there. So we want to do that. Given the increase that I mentioned of $6 or $7 for residential customers, you're still you are still the lowest water provider. This is a survey of a 5A, again, most single family, 10 units. The average use around here, 9 in the wintertime, 13 in the summer, so 10 over the year. And as you can see, you're still the lowest. You're $40.15 with the survey. It's $49.57 with the proposed. And then you can see your neighboring agencies. This is the proposed rate schedule that we would like to put in the Prop 218 notice. And this is what we would ask City Council to consider to adopt at the public hearing. This would be also in the notice that we send out to all property owners. One of the things that's important to note is that these are the maximum that you can implement. So as the years progress, and we're looking at 25-year horizon, 23, 24, you may not need to implement the full rates. So that's something to evaluate and down the road, but it's good to do a 5-year schedule. I recommend that. It is costly to do these studies, sending out the notice, and it's much more efficient to do it in one time over 5 years. So that was water. Next is we're going to talk about wastewater rates. Wastewater is a little bit more complicated in the sense that you are 100% a collection system, but you also have 2 service areas. You have the east and west. The east side of PCH is for the treatment cost. So a wastewater system is a collection and treatment. The treatment cost on the east side of PCH is done by the county, and that's charged directly to the parcel owner. So you're not involved in that transaction, that business. The county takes care of it and bills directly to the property owner. The west side of PCH, now that is served by the City of LA, Hyperion. And that charge is assessed to the City of El Segundo based on its strength and flow. And it's the City of El Segundo now needs to recover that cost to its customers, and needs to look at the strength and flow of its residential, non-residential customers. The city, Hyperion basically charges you based on the flow and strength that you have to your customers, and we want to take that into account. Here's a visual that shows that. So here's the City of LA Hyperion. This is the area that we need to address with the cost that they charge us and that we need to assess to our customers. This is the county, and this is again on the property roll. So again, similar, you have 50% of your costs associated with treatment that you're not dealing with. That's a third-party cost. More than the remainder is yours. So some of the challenges, why are we facing some challenges with wastewater? Unfortunately, we have a unfortunate perfect storm here. We have 2 things. First, in the past, the prior City Council has done nominal rate increases, only 2%. Since 2016, so there hasn't been any increases even to deal with inflationary costs. Unfortunately, there's also been significant increase in costs. As I mentioned, Hyperion cost has increased by 91%, or $28 now cost per single family. And we need to absorb that. We need to take those costs into account, and we anticipate operating costs to increase around 6% a year. Because of these challenges and fund balances, this is a nice visual that shows you the ending balances right over here. This is where we would like to be to meet our reserve targets. Currently we're not there, as you can see. And then because of these costs associated with Hyperion, we reached it to a deficit. And so the wastewater system would have to borrow money from another enterprise in order to keep moving forward. So in order to deal with this challenge that we're facing, and the majority of this increase is because of Hyperion, and to deal with that adjustment of cost associated. By doing this, then by 2025, as you can see, you're healthy and fund balance. Now, this is a 5-year horizon, and as I mentioned in water, I would recommend the same thing with wastewater, which is if City Council does adopt these rates, you would reconsider the future rate increases, and maybe we won't need to do these 4% in the out years. Now, one of the other things we want to do is we want to simplify the rate structure, realign it based on cost of service. So what we're recommending is to have a flat rate for single family. Right now, your rate structure for residential is based on total water use. We're suggesting that everyone uses 9 units. That's basically your indoor need, a family of 4. Multifamily and everyone else, including multifamily, will be charged as flat rate, a minimum of 9. But if they go above that, then they would be charged a CCF charge. We also take into account the treatment costs associated with the City of LA, Hyperion, and take that into account. So this reflects that, where we have single family right over here at $23.23, and they're proposed to $44.45. As I mentioned, the majority of that cost increase is because of the City of LA treatment, $28. But this would be a flat charge. This is what people would pay each month. And then multifamily and commercial west would be paying, if they go above 9, this charge, and then commercial east, which is where they get charged on the property roll for their treatment costs from the county, would be charged this. So we charge that plus this if they go above 9. This shows the impacts associated with it. And again, these are, I'll be the first to admit, they are significant with these deficit and structural changes that we need to deal with. This now shows you a wastewater comparison where we have your current rate right over here and the proposed rates. Now, one of the challenges is that some of these communities don't get treatment costs from the City of LA. Some do. Culver City, Santa Monica does have that. As you know, they are a bit lower than the proposed. I suspect in the out years, they will be catching up to you as they deal with these cost increase. The total impact to your customer now, and then we want to show you what does this mean. So we have the current bill right over here. We have the 2020 bill, and this is the dollar changes associated with it on a monthly basis. This is the survey showing you the impacts associated with it, where you're currently over here at $70.68. With the total bill, the survey would be $94.02. Would be still below Manhattan Beach. Next steps associated with the study is to, for us, to proceed forward to writing a report, present that report to City Council on September 1st, have the authority to proceed with a Prop 218 notice. Then on November 17th, have the public hearing, and then January 1st. Any questions, I'd like to answer them.
Hey, colleagues, any questions? I don't see.
I'll go.
Everyone. Yeah, go ahead, please.
I think that we owe, because of how sensitive this is, we owe it a bit to people to ensure that the residents know we're obligated to set rates, and the mechanism by which we're obligated to do it is a Prop 218 ballot. We do not have any other option. This is the way that the process has to work. With this bizarre negative, 50% of taxpayers protest ballot piece is not a sneaky operation. It's what we have to do. I think similarly, it's worth pointing out for the record that things that are in That we cannot make you pay a sewer fee and then use it to put up lights. So there's not, these are things that are worth reminding people and pointing out. I would say that although it's tucked in at the end of a very long meeting that's focus has been vastly emotional elsewhere, that people need to realize how massive these increases are. And I think that on the one hand, if we are going to say that all councils previous to this had a distribution plan of fees on incoming water based on meter size in a manner not consistent with best practice or the law, that we are taking a step to rectify that. And that is a reason that single family owners are going to see, or single family homes are going to see such a massive increase on their incoming water. Similarly though, the wastewater piece, I mean, if you are a single person living in a single family home, you know, flushing the toilet twice a day, and you are paying $50 a month for that privilege, that's a lot for us to answer for. And there's going to be some very unhappy campers, and I don't blame them. And I think that we collectively, as we go forward, we really have to have an answer about why Hyperion is doing this and what these costs are. A 91% increase. We are more than doubling the rate. So remember, we're looking at these. Your bill has two components, right? So you are seeing a 21, and then you're stapling that on top of another bill that just went to $61 for a single family home using those 900 cubic feet. I mean, that is a gigantic increase to people. And there's people who are, if you're a retired person on a fixed income living at home by yourself, that is going to hit you like a bat in the face. And I think that we need to really make sure that we are intelligent about how we're advocating for our residents in this regard. Because look, we get a vote on the sanitation board. It's on the east side of the county. You know, Mayor Boyles and I sit up there. We'll be there tomorrow on Wednesday. And we can vote on rates. We can vote on practices. We can vote on these things. This Hyperion piece with the City of LA is dictated to us. And I would recommend that we explore a reason to find a rationale. So that's all.
Thanks, Mayor Pro Tem Lance.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. To echo kind of or build on what Chris is talking about, in the end, through no matter how many graphs we put on this thing, no matter how many flowery numbers and fonts we put on it, we're basically saying we're going to increase water rates by a tremendous amount. And when this goes to public hearing, we need to be very direct about what the rationale is for it and spell it out like a 5-year-old's going to look at it so that they all understand. Because I get lost when you put all the numbers out and you're putting all the numbers. How does it really affect our residents and why is it going this way? I really believe we have to spell that out completely. And then, as Chris is saying, let's see what our options are. I know there's things that we simply cannot do. It's just being forced down our throat. But if there is, goes to public comment or public hearing, we are very, very direct and very clear as to what it is and why it's happening.
Thank you, Councilmember.
I mean, just because I feel municipal and regional government utility arcana to a lot of the residents, but you know, when we see the biggest piece of the Hyperion cost is personnel. I mean, I know Mayor Boyles and I, when we were negotiating contracts at the sanitation district, I mean, that is an ugly process. And that is you pull your car into that lot and, you know, the signs are slapping on your car process. And through that labor contract, I have no idea what the process is at Hyperion. I just know that you put a graph up there that said 50% of the fee increase is based on the personnel costs. I mean, I just don't know. So I think that we owe it by that September 1st meeting to have a really good answer for, as Councilmember Giroux says, when we sit up there and tell people that their rates are going to double and their bill is going to double every 2 months, we need to be able to tell them why.
Thank you. Yeah, Mayor Pro Tem, thanks. And I concur. And one of the things I asked when Lance and I were on our 2-on-1 with you guys is, do we have an answer from the City of LA about why those costs have gone up so exorbitantly? And what level of governance is there for that agency specifically? I see Director of Public Works coming on, Interim, on that topic, because that is a big number. And Similar to what Chris and Lance said, I think we need to educate, absolutely. And we need to educate not just on wastewater and water and where the dollars go, but also about our economic picture overall. Because we do know that we're going to anticipate a $9 million shortfall in a 9-month period in this new fiscal year. And some residents might just say, well, make up the difference. And in fact, that would be the outcome if Prop 218 fails, for lack of a better term, is that we would be subsidizing that. And so I think the picture is fairly bleak as we look out over the next fiscal year. And I think it's not just about telling the story about educating our constituents about how we get our water, how we procure the water, and how we pay for it. It's also about the overall economic picture that we're faced with, because we're going to have a series of difficult conversations over the next fiscal year that are going to ensue. And did we get an answer on that, Joe or Sanjay, from City of LA in terms of how they can justify a 91% increase? And if not, I think we should. If we don't have that answer, I think we should ask whomever we need to, Mayor Garcetti or whomever. I'm sure it's under his domain, what that number is.
I'm happy to jump in on that. Just a number of discussions. Their primary driver, as they tell us, is capital projects, and basically having to maintain and repair an elderly wastewater plant, as well as the collection system. But the other drivers, as you mentioned, are their annual operating costs go up. Everything from their SCE costs, it's very energy dependent, to labor costs and others. But there's no doubt that those increases over that period of time are extremely large. We've also asked them whether they've got the ability to deliver those capital projects and whether they'll do them within that time frame. I'm optimistic that those costs might go down a little bit. And as Mr. Gower suggested, some of those 4% increases in the outer years may not be needed, but the original increase is needed, and partly because we haven't raised our rates for the past number of years. And so we've been absorbing these costs. And so that gap between where we need to be and where we are has widened. But we'd be happy to follow up more with the City of LA and try to get more definitive by that September 1st hearing.
And Mark, so the capital projects, none of those relate to the new 100% of runoff goal is going to be captured at Hyperion. It's all for existing infrastructure.
That's correct. We asked that very question, and they said that the cost to cover those projects will be built into the cost of the water that they plan to sell, and that the costs that they're passing on to us are only the treatment costs.
Okay, and then I think one clarification I think is worth noting is, I can't remember who said it, but suggesting that council didn't make the decision. I don't know that in the last 4 years the council had an opportunity to vote on wastewater and water. It's been on the docket for a while now, and I don't know what happened before I was on council with the council before us. I'm guessing if they saw those numbers, they would probably vote. Maybe not. I don't know. Do you have the exact history on that, so we're not just passing the buck on past councils in terms of what transpired?
Yes, Mayor. The last Prop 218 process that took place, the study was in 2014, and then the rates, I believe, were implemented for 2015, 16, 17, 18, and 19.
So, and that was based on best available information at the time?
It was, and in 2015 and 16, the wastewater fund saw a 2% increase, and then after 16, it was 0. And I believe what the thought process was back then is that the wastewater fund had a healthy fund balance. Had a high increase the last study. They were going to negate some of that increase by not having CPI increases in the wastewater fund. But that does hurt. By having a 0% increase, does hurt the operations of wastewater.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lulu. I think City Attorney wanted to chime in too. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, on the water side, based upon some cases that were decided over the explained, there's a need to reconfigure how those costs are spread. And so, as you saw, your water fund is healthy, but those rate increases are due to cases that are requiring a reconfiguration of the rates. For example, conservation-based tiers are no longer recognized as a valid reason for tiers, and so the consultant had to work through different processes to come up with a methodology with current case. Actually shifted some of the costs from the commercial side to the residential side.
Got it. One other point of clarification is that the surcharge that Chevron and no other customer pays is something that was mutually agreed upon, but long-term agreement, is that correct?
Yes, that dates back to about the mid-90s.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other questions or comments? Yes, Mr. Nickel.
I was just going to add that being our delegate on the Hyperion Council, Community Council for the past few years, the list of ongoing projects at the wastewater plant is always updating, and there's always new projects coming online. I mean, they are essentially rebuilding that entire plant. You know, the residents are hearing this construction, but the residents also report back that the smell is not what it used to be. And so one would say that whatever work they are doing is improving the process by which they take in our waste and process it. But yeah, I would say that those increases, the 91% increase, is very, very directly associated with the ongoing construction at the plant.
It just seems irresponsible almost to be able to say that you have a 91% increase that you're incurring. Like, where was their equipment reserve? This is a big, sophisticated government agency.
About their road maintenance.
Well, to that end, Mr. Mayor, I also want to be clear that when I was speaking of past councils, I was speaking somewhat facetiously, judging by the numbers you see. I mean, these are obviously very intelligent people making decisions based on the information they have.
Thank you for
2 weeks. It's showing them this, that holy cow.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks for clarifying, Mayor Pro Tem. I knew what you meant. Okay, any further questions or comments? Otherwise, I'm going to ask if we have consensus to receive and file. Anyone opposed to receive and file or wish to comment further?
I do have
Yes.
a
Yes, Councilmember Perstrick.
As we look to, increase the rates, do we want to do it, when are we going to have a discussion about, do we do the whole full proposed rate of it so that it isn't such a huge increase for our residents? Like, so that, do we come up with a modified rate increase so that our residents aren't being burdened with this huge amount on the first year?
Anyone want it? Scott? It's similar approach, Carol, to what we did with the solid waste, which took 3 attempts to get our constituents, being the last city outside of San Diego and all of California, to start paying for the solid waste, helping with that. We did subsidize it.
Right.
At least the first year. So it's a similar idea you're talking about.
Correct.
Mr. Mitnick?
We understand that the residents have to pick up some additional costs, but do they have to pick up the full 91% increase, or can we phase that in? And is that a separate approach?
We're already subsidizing right now. We're already making up the difference from the wastewater fund. So we're already paying a chunk of it, and this is on top of it, and on top of your Measure W funding that's building. Crazy.
What you're wrestling with today is a result of decisions in the past. We're not going to point the finger, but this is an example of what happens when you're not adjusting utilities every single year. You're not keeping up with inflation. Your charge has to be connected to the cost of the service consumed. It makes it more challenging. If you delay, you're delaying the inevitable, and it's just going to get harder down the road. But those are options. You clearly have the options to phase it. And when it's all said and done, the water and wastewater rates here are still lower than many other communities, especially on the water side. So, Joe, did you clarify what's going to happen on the next meeting, and when council makes the actual decision on what the rates will be?
Sure. So the next meeting, we bring back the financial plan, the final plan that Raftelis is finalizing. And then we're going to ask City Council to proceed with authorization of the prop information to all the homeowners and renters, showing what the 5-year proposed rate increase is for water and wastewater, and then provide a ballot in there where they can mail it back to the city, and it's called a negative protest vote. So they'll have the ability to mail that ballot in. If they do, that means no, they don't want to proceed with the rate increase. If the city receives 50% plus one, then there is no further discussion. If the city receives less than 50% of a protest, then we're coming back on November 7th, the rates formally. And then Sanjay, if you have anything else to add that I left out, please feel free.
No, the only other thing that you may want to consider also during this process is affordability program for certain groups of customers, given these impacts. So I do recommend that we revisit you do have affordability program right now, and we develop one based on what you have right now. You do have some ability to do that still within the Prop 218 framework.
I do have one other question. So, with the expansion of ADUs, and then, we just did a approved short-term rentals, how is that impacting this and the rates? So, if someone that's sitting, like Chris Pimentel mentioned, it's one person in a home versus a home that's being sublet for short-term rentals, or they have now an ADU, are they going to be paying the same price? So how are we going to ensure that that doesn't happen? And that
well, I'll address part of this. On the ADUs, in many instances, the city was precluded from requiring a separate water meter to that property, or a separate water connection at all. So in that case, and I'll look to the consultant, I think we're going to have to treat them as a single family, although the joint consumption of both units, if you will probably cause them to go into a higher tier than the normal single family residential. Whether that will that equalize so that it will be fair for that type of a situation?
Yeah, you're correct, Mark. So if it's on the water side of the house, if somebody created an EDU, they're using more water, on the consumption side of the bill, they would be charged more, and that will reflect that. So there's more people in the household, there's more outdoor water use, that will be reflected in the bill, and they would pay for that. On the wastewater side of the house, I assume that all the EDUs or the accessory dwelling units, they still would be considered single family in the billing system, Joe? Be multifamily. I assume that they always will be.
That's a discussion we can actually have between now and the next meeting and
Okay.
look at that, because technically they may not then be paying their fair share if they have more output, if you will. We won't capture that the same as if we would on demand for water. So I don't recall anything in the ADU legislation about being prohibited from charging for 2-meter charges, but for 2 sewer charges, but I will take a look at that, and we can talk about that. On the short-term rental side, the council only permitted short-term home sharing. And so I think with that in place, if the current structure that's being proposed should work equitably for that type of situation, just as it would for a single family residential.
Okay, anything else? I think we're ready to receive and file. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gower.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah. All right, we're going on to reports. Madam Clerk, anything to report this evening? You on? Anything from Dino? He was on. I don't think so. Okay, Councilmember Giroux.
Nothing from me. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Councilmember Nickel.
At this 9 o'clock hour, I hope we still have, a ton of people watching online and at home and on, the community cable network. This is fantastic. As Mayor Pro Tem Pimentel said earlier, this meeting has been filled with lots of emotions, lots of discussion, and a ton of city business. It was stated in public comments earlier today that us as a council, our silence is somehow welcoming hate into our city, and somehow we're sitting on our hands. I think we're doing absolutely the opposite of that. We are not sitting on our hands. We may not be public on social media, but we are very vocal here at council. Our actions speak louder than our words. And I just want to make a statement, Mayor Boyles. I know you and Councilmember Drew spoke out earlier. No room for hate in my life from either side. I listen to both sides call each other hate groups, and they use that word, the 4-letter word, hate. And I would just ask for everyone in town to just please try to rise above it. If you get propaganda on your doorstep, just throw it away, move on. I choose El Segundo, I choose joy, I choose love. I'm choosing my neighbors above everyone else. I hope that all of you residents out there are listening, because here we are standing up, as Ben Watkins said, stand up and say something. Your council is standing up and saying something. We are prioritizing diversity. We are prioritizing action. Tell me, looking back, ever before in our strategic plan that a council, 5 members of this El Segundo community that were elected by you residents have ever stood for this and put this as a priority. They haven't. We are the first. So I ask you to respect the process, allow us the time to put this up, and understand that actions do speak louder than words. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Nickel. Councilmember Perstuck.
Yes, I just wanted to remind everybody that today was the day 100 years ago that the last state, Tennessee, ratified the women's right to vote. And I want to thank my 4 females, like Susan B. Anthony, who is pardoned today for all her crimes, for fighting for our right to vote. And it's important that we all use our voice in a productive way, and that we do vote in November. And as to Mr. Nichols mentioning, please, hate is hate, regardless of what side it is. And as a receiver of hate recently from my family, it's important that we are nice to people, to each other, and we respect each other. I do want to say that, good luck to all the kids that are starting school in the next couple weeks. Regardless of their parents' choice of how they're going to be doing their schooling, it's important that we do not judge, and that we respect that, and that we support the children as much as possible, because it is going to be a challenging year for many students and for many families. And then lastly, I want to give a shout out to the SNS company and the Swanson family for once again, in memory of the servicemen and women who lost their lives for the 9/11 disaster, that they are going to be providing lunch for our men and women of service at the city. And I just want to thank them once again for continuing to help us remember and honor the people that went before us as far as service organizations to help the community. So thank you to SNS company and the Swanson family.
Thank you, Councilmember Perstuck. Mayor Pro Tem Pimentel.
Just a bit of a reminder going forward here. We have sanitation this week, which will be setting some limited policy for our business on the east side of town. And while the governor's office is focused on the pandemic, and most of municipal governments are focused on pandemic and social issues, your legislature is busy. because they're focused on all kinds of things that they think you are not. So this week we'll have a series of meetings through the regional organizations for contract cities, League of Cities, and the COG. I'll look at some of the different bills that are being proposed in Sacramento. We will be reporting those out here from the council, but also please avail yourself of contacting your assembly person, Autumn Burke. I presume she's doing better after battling COVID, and Ben Allen, and let them know your feelings on some of the bills in front of them. Because as much as what we do affects your life, oftentimes what they do really affects your life, particularly when it comes to housing and local control issues that they're very interested in legislating. So that's all. I'm about to be serenaded by my daughter here over the corner, so I'll go on mute. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Yeah, specifically, Chris mentioned it, but there are many bills that are being considered that are very far along that will, if you're concerned about the integrity of our single family homes and our residential neighborhood, the argument we've been making to the people that will listen, including a call I was on with Ben Allen with a group, and then Ben called me afterwards because he's very concerned, and also with Al Marisucci, the message we're saying is we're actually way denser in El Segundo than we're giving credit for. You know, talks about 1,000 residents in a little over 1 square mile in El Segundo, surrounded by 4 square miles of the most important economic square footage real estate that there is in all of Southern California. We have 10 million square feet of inventory of Class A office alone. That's more than Century City. Right here in El Segundo on 2 square miles, because remember we have a refinery that's also 2 square miles. So we are a dense city. And as Mayor Pro Tem suggested, our legislators are wanting to legislate out our local control. So imagine us having no control, no say whatsoever. A developer wants to come in, they want to put a huge housing unit right smack dab in the middle of our commercial district or wherever. We could have no say in that. So we're continuing to monitor these both at the South Bay Cities Council of Government and as a league, as Chris mentioned. Martha, who's our government or communications and legislative affairs manager, will be serving up some of this information because we do need to hear from our residents to say that we don't stand for that. And the legislators aren't hearing enough right now, frankly, about how this will change. And I want to end on a positive note. 4 girls from El Segundo went to Oklahoma City recently for the softball games, All-American softball games in Oklahoma City. Allie Stevenson, Sienna Mayer, Taryn Walker, and Marilyn McCavery. Congratulations, girls. And that is all for the City Council. And Mark Hensley, City Attorney, anything to report?
Nothing this evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager.
Mayor, members of the council, no additional follow-up items. The next city council meeting will be 2 weeks from today on September 1st. And at this point, by way of staff presentations, we have a few items. Part 2 on the wastewater item is the staff just articulated. We'll come back and ask you to set the Prop 218 process so we can move forward on that. The library park activation update, that'll be before you. The R3 multifamily zoning study with respect to the Washington Park neighborhood, that is coming to you. And then as we mentioned earlier, we will have our report on the downtown conditional use, temporary use permits, encroachment permits, that type of thing. We'll have our report and recommendation as to how to go forward with that. Quarterly treasurer's report, and that's it. So Council, thanks for a good meeting.
Thank you. I think, Tracy, that does it. We're adjourned at 9:13 p.m. Thank you.
Bye.